It began with 3 pillars, the foundation for UW Esports, pushing ourselves to greater heights.
Community.
Career.
Competition.
Oh yeah. Reminds me of Toronto Defiant Yakpung. Reminiscent of that, of just juggling everyone into the corner there.
Maybe that'll be the game changer here for UW.
Maybe. Oh my goodness, what an angle by Wizard.
Wow.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the NCAA Final Four match between the Connecticut Huskies and the Miami Hurricanes. Just kidding, everybody. April Fools, welcome to the UW Esports Game of the Week. We are featuring a match from PAC-U CLoL, Collegiate League of Legends. Prior to our spring week, we got to see the Huskies go head-to-head against Utah Varsity, breaking our undefeated streak in this bracket. And today, we will see the UW Esports team compete against them again in another rivalry matchup. Here at the UW, our esports programs seek to build and foster community, open doors to the vast career opportunities in the field of gaming, and promote the virtues of healthy competition. Through esports, we are able to communicate with one another, forming and developing digital communities, and we hope that you enjoy being a part of our community, and we invite you to get more involved. You can follow us here on our UW Esports Discord server, as well as on our social channels at UofW Esports. Now, to introduce ourselves, my name is Aaron. I'm a 4th year here at the University of Washington, but while I'm on this desk, you can call me Kestra, and I'll be one of your casters tonight.
And I'm Ava. I'm currently a 1st year at the University of Washington, and I'll be your other caster for this afternoon stream.
And Ava, you know what, with the April Fools and everything, no one can tell what's real or not. You know, I've got so many Discord servers running up and down with photoshopped notification messages and all of that. So amidst all this chaos, Ava, I want to ask you to help our audience get set and ready for the stage of what we're going to be seeing for this match tonight, this rematch against Utah Varsity.
So yeah, last time we played up against Utah Varsity, we had a good first game, but unfortunately lost the second and the third one, which was really sad, but they were long games and they were super fun to cast and look over. I think the League of Legends team has been keeping up pretty well over the season since our last stream a little over a month ago, and I'm excited to see what they bring tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we hope you all had a great finals week and a spring break, and now that we're back, we hope the League of Legends team as well is refreshed and ready to take on their opponents here, Utah Varsity, who, as you said, had a real strong showing. We're able to break that undefeated streak that we had going for so long, and in a Game 3 fashion. So, Ava, I've got to ask you, for those of us who are breaking off, coming back from that break, still getting back into the scene of things, who are these players from Utah Varsity that we have got to watch out for as University of Washington fan?
Oh gosh, last time, I mean, it was really, their teamwork was just so astounding. I think they just kind of caught us off guard because normally we're able to work as a team so much better, but their jungler was able to get past Sky Falls for me, which was really surprising because what we'd seen from that far was he was really ahead of everyone else. Yeah. So it was just kind of like it came out of nowhere really because the first game seemed to be going so well for us. So I think this time what UW has to look out for is just being more aware that Utah knows what's happening, like knows their strategies and kind of knows how to work around it and what UW can do to hopefully kind of manage them, really.
Well said. This is a team that does their homework. Utah Varsity does. They are able to, throughout that Game 3 series, come off the back of a pretty commanding Game 1 loss dealt out by the University of Washington, but adjust their game plan throughout the series. Keep matching up with the University of Washington, always keeping them on their toes, and like you said, really came out of nowhere. So I'm really excited to see, like you said, players like their jungler who are able to go toe-to-toe with our own, some of the best in the conference, and see whether, you know, this is going to be the makings of a real great rivalry, or if the University of Washington, even better, going to rebound and come back even stronger as we head into the close of this season. But more broadly, Ava, aside from our opponents, what are you really hoping to see? What are you really looking forward to see from our team here and what they might be showing us tonight?
Well, gosh, I'm just hoping that we can see some more of the really strong picks in this current meta. Annie is still just as strong as she was last
Uh,
month, even with this newest patch. And Acel got a little bit of a nerf, but he's still pretty strong once he hits his passive. I don't know exactly what it's called, but once that spike comes out, he's pretty strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if we still saw bans in those areas. And I think UW will also kind of have to look out for and ban more what Utah likes to play rather than kind of going for their normal strategy of banning what is just meta overall and what they don't want to see because it's strong. I think they just really have to look out for like the long con really.
Yeah, and I think what's really exciting about being able to cast in a scene like this is that there's a certain character to each of the players that we have on these teams, right? And being able to see them break into those molds, whether they're gonna lean into some of those things that are more meta, some of the newer things that we're seeing. I would personally love to see the Aurelion Soul. He has had his power level tampered down a bit, to be certain, but still a very exciting pick to see. And one with a very defined game plan, like you said, right? Gonna have a lot less priority in the early game. Gonna fall behind to be certain, and has to rely on the rest of the team in order to pick up the slack. But if he can get that bridge across the mid game and start to get that Stardust, start to get those items in his inventory, can absolutely win the game by himself. And that to me is really similar to the playstyle that we see of our very own mid laner, right? A very quiet level of control over the game, a lot of stability that he's able to provide in that early mid game, and really coming alive when it comes to those team fights. So I think it's a really great fit for him. I would love to see him break it out. But like you said, there's a lot more to look forward to as well. Things like the Annie, a lot of the other things that we've seen in the professional scene. I know in the support lane as well. Things like the Thresh and the Rakan, some of these higher skill cap supports have emerged as really strong picks recently. And not only that, they're some of the flashiest that League of Legends has to offer. So I would love to see things like that come out as well. But I think if we're talking about this rematch in particular, there's one point that I really want to see touched on again by these two teams, and that was the Sky Falls for Me's champion pool that we got to see quite a bit of in game one. And that champ pool we're going to see flex now as we head into champion selection. Already the jungle being taken away from by Utah Varsity. It's going to be the Kane as the very first ban, Ava.
Yeah, no, so not anything that we weren't really expecting. Kane is just a very strong character for our junglers, so it makes a lot of sense that they'd ban it. I have a quick question for you while we're waiting for a couple more bans to come in. Have you seen Melio at all yet? And do you have any thoughts on him?
I've seen him in the odd solo queue game I've been able to fit in over the past break, and he certainly seems a deceptively simple character, but there's a lot of little things that you're able to do, I think. The AoE cleanse can make or break a lot of enemy team compositions, and that Q of his, the Mega Fireball kick or whatever it's called, I think it's got a lot of potential. Not even in terms of just the insects that you can maybe get in the minuscule montage play that might come into vogue, but there's a lot of little room for it as one of those higher skill cap kinds of CCs that you can land. So I hope that these supports have got some games under their belt of it. I hope it's enabled. I would certainly like to see it. And now bands start to get rounded out. Gragas, such a strong pick in so many lanes. Navarus as well, I think. One of the best all-around ADCs, but what do we see that the University of Washington is targeting in their band so far, Ava?
So we see the Fiora, the Maokai, and the Wukong, which is obviously targeting more of the top and the jungle lanes. They don't seem to be too worried with this first round of picks
Right.
with mid and the bot lanes. Another thing that's really interesting is that Utah did ban the Varus, which is a very strong pick for our ADC MA.
Yeah.
So not really surprising coming from that, but definitely interesting to see what he's going to pick, which seems to be Zaya.
Already some pretty standard stuff, right? The Annie, a very powerful flex pick. You've got that B1, but you don't want to show too much of your game plan. It's always welcome. On the other hand, some simple red side strategies with the big duo bot lane in the form of the Zyra Khan. Definitely one of the strongest that you're able to string together on this patch. And I'm curious to see what the response is going to be from Utah, at least in the bot lane, because we know that there are so many pairings of ADCs and supports that go so well together, and none that the University of Washington has opted to take away. So it seems like they've got some confidence in this Zaya
Yeah,
Rakan and
no,
going
and
against the Ezreal, it looks like.
I'm excited to see the Annie pick because I don't think from the games that we've streamed we've been able to see her since she's become pretty meta in the support lane again,
Yeah.
and it's been a
Yeah.
long while since she's been like pretty active down there. Obviously, there's been picks here and there, but she's really strong. And then we get the Ezreal pick as well, which is going to be huge poke in the bot lane, and our bot lane's going to have to play pretty carefully against that to watch out because any wrong move and they're going to be punished pretty heavily for it.
Yeah, very non-committal answer, right? Able to do a lot of sustained damage that the Feather Storm can't quite totally mitigate, and also has the escape from the Rakan as well. It's certainly a matchup that we're used to seeing, but not one on the professional stage, as the Rek'Sai, speaking of not often seeing, is going to be the opted-in matchup against the Sejuani. And Rek'Sai, I don't think I've seen too much of this patch, Ava.
No, I haven't seen Rek'Sai in a long while. Well, a really strong jungler, just not really a meta pick normally, I'd
Right.
say. She's definitely one of the characters that has a higher skill gap in ceiling
Right.
because you really have to play her differently than you would play most characters in a certain champ pool. Like enchanters are all pretty similar normally, assassins you can kind of figure out, but Rek'Sai kind of breaks the mold for like junglers because she has such a different playstyle. So I'm really interested to see how our jungler is able to handle that and how well it's played.
Yeah, and it's yet another tool in the belt of Sky Falls for me, right? We know this player to be known for those high mobility ganking junglers, and Rek'Sai exactly in that same school. Really unorthodox gank pathings if you've got the knowledge to pull them off. Really high damage in the early game, but importantly, what this is indicating for the University of Washington is that they're going to be playing to try to get these side lanes ahead. It's not going to be the Sky Falls for me on a carry champion like the Zed that we saw last series. So gonna be looking to see what the mid lane, what the top lane are gonna shape out to be, as already we're seeing things like the Gwen and the Vex taken away to try to thin out that damage profile from the University of Washington.
So yeah, and we finally get a mid lane ban, but again, they're really targeting that top laner here, so they must know that Utah's top laner has been doing very well lately. The Swain pick comes out, which I'm really excited for because that's going to make for some really intense team fights, which we know both teams are really good at, but unfortunately last time Utah really had the upper hand with the team fights as a whole, so I think Swain might help even out the matchup this time.
Yeah, it's that controlling power that he provides in those team fights, right? And it's also another facilitating champion, which means maybe another egg in the basket of this Xayah Rakan, as the answer is going to be Ahri on the other side of the mid lane. Swain going to be playing it low and slow, waiting for those team fights. Really, meanwhile, Centrial on that Ahri has a lot more potential to make plays for his team off the back of things like the Glacial Prison, like the Flash Tibbers on that Annie. So really high tempo potential from Utah, and maybe all in service of setting up this Tryndamere hover that is going to be locked in for the side of Utah. University of Washington, on the other hand, though, they showed their hand in the Malphite. Something we've seen emerge as an answer to these AD-reliant compositions. Things like the Ahri, not really that capable of chewing through them, but they're still toying with their options, Ava. And how do you feel about this Tryndamere Ezreal core so far?
Oh gosh, they're gonna have a lot of all-in potential, I think. And I
No.
think that's where UW's gonna have to kind of play around, is playing around those longer team fights to
Right.
try and get more worth out of it. Because if they end up having those short, quick team fights, it definitely seems like Utah will have to come out on top of that. Because they have the Tryndamere, who if there's a team fight and he's not there, he's just gonna push the top lane all the way to base, which was an issue that UW dealt with last time. Because out of nowhere, the Tryndamere suddenly was, or not the Tryndamere, but their top laner got into UW's base and was able to basically end whenever UW left the base,
Yeah.
which was so unfortunate. But this is just going to have to really, I mean, it's I guess a test of what they've learned since that last matchup and how they might be able to counter letting him just backdoor all the way into their base again.
Yeah, the side lane's certainly a gap that they're going to need to address. And I'm really glad, like you said, that this is something that they're opting into this time around, sending the Camille as the final pick to go up against it. You'll have to forgive my inexperience, but I'm not too well versed in how this side lane matchup is supposed to go. But I can say at least that both these teams are fielding very high carry potential top laners that are going to be going into that side, heading off to match each other. And on the other hand, it's going to be these two very different team fighting sorts of compositions to match up in the 4v4 over those objectives. it was really interesting to me to see the Tryndamere as a response to the Swain pick, because certainly those kinds of fully committal melee styles of champions are exactly what the Swain wants to be playing into. But maybe there's a reasoning behind that, especially going against the Xayah, right? Especially if you're going with something like the Gale Force with the Navori Quickblades. Tryndamere has a lot more mobility than you might expect and can really keep up the chase even after Xayah uses things like the Ghost or the Cleanse or the Flash and gets the Featherstorm down. Tryndamere can still stick on top of her. And meanwhile, University of Washington's composition doesn't really have as much really reliable lockdown as they could hope for against a champ like Tryndamere, who loves to just run all over the place. So it's a super exciting pick, a real wild card one, I might add, Ava. And what else are you going to be looking for in this draft?
Yeah, no, like you said, the Xayah is going to be the main source of damage, it seems like, on this team. Obviously, Camille and Swain will have some say, but
Right.
they're more tanky. So it seems like for the more dive-centered comp with the Tryndamere and the Ahri with all her mobility, they're going to be going for the Xayah. So I think UW's really going to have to look out for a Mei to hope to keep all of Utah off of him. Because if they get that pick, that just obviously gives them an upper hand because they don't have as much damage because the Rakan's not going to give them much in compared to the Annie when it comes to damage. So I'm just really excited to kind of see how it works out and to see if UW has been able to kind of fill the gaps that we found in their gameplay last time that Utah was kind of able to exploit and really make a really good win out of. I'm also excited to see the mid lane matchup, especially because that's what was really enjoyable about the last time.
Yeah.
Both the mid laners from both schools are just really good at what they do, and I think they're both going to be watching for a single mistake that comes from the other team so that they can go in. Because the Ahri misses the charm, and Swain's going to be looking right for that and going right in. Whereas if Swain misses his E, Ahri's going to be trying to land that charm and then getting some good burst damage off.
Yeah, really thin margins of error here. Really different kinds of ways to pull the trigger for both of these teams. Not just in the mid lane, right? If you can get either of those major CC skill shots, but also what we see are different ways of forcing the engage, right? The Sejuani and the Annie, as a pairing, but also the Camille and the Rek'Sai as some really long-range single target engage as well that things like the Swain can follow up from distance. It's a different sort of playstyle here when it comes to those team fights, but to get to those team fights in the first place, I think both of those teams have got to consider how they're going to pivot around the gameplay of these junglers, the Skyfalls for me especially, who we know the University of Washington has folded into their early game plan so deeply, and something that the University of Utah has been able to adjust to so well in each of the games that we've seen them play. So I'm really interested in seeing how this guy falls for me on this Rek'Sai, as we do wait for the monitor issue to resolve, hopefully just an April Fool's joke. But the sky falls to me on this Rek'Sai, as we said, playing a bit more of a facilitating role this time, but no less tempo than any of the champions that we're used to seeing. And what that's going to mean for how he's going to set up the carries that he's got in the side lanes. On the other hand, the Utes, with a lot on their backs here, are they going to be able to prove that that last series was really all it meant? Or if the University of Washington is going to prevail on top. We're headed into game one, folks, of this series. This rematch between these two teams has already been seeing some prioritization of between these two teams, just in terms of the pings, right? They're spotting out the cleanse on the Xayah, the ghost from the Swain as well, which can be used in an offensive capacity. But the University of Washington definitely showing a lot more reliance on the disengage, as we're gonna try to fiddle with some of these technical difficulties. But now that we're back into it, the teams fan out, and we're headed into the level 1, Ava.
Oh. And we have it paused again, unfortunately. Another thing I wanted to point out that I'm really kind of surprised with is Annie's the only really meta pick on both teams, like overall, what's been really popular lately. Swain's been pretty good as well, but Annie's definitely been the one that's kind of carrying this last month or two.
Certainly.
Of like just games in general, and she's been really strong. So I think it's really interesting that that's kind of, each team has kind of their one main meta pick, and otherwise it seems to be more bouncing off of what everyone's good at.
Yeah. And of course, what we love to see in the collegiate scene is players who are able to make use of champions that they've got so many games under, regardless of what might be the strongest in an overall game state, what they have and what they have individual talent on. That's what's really able to shine in these kinds of games, right? Things like a Rek'Sai who you're not used to seeing, but happen to fit the style of a jungler like the Skyfalls for me. These are really the treats that we enjoy here in Collegiate League of Legends. As the timer's still ticking down, we're hoping that our players are doing all right behind those monitors, but while we wait for those, Ava, have there been any games in the larger League of Legends scene that you've been enjoying recently?
I haven't been able to watch much League lately because I've been on spring break, but I've
Right.
definitely been trying to kind of a little bit keep up with like LCS challengers currently, and that's been really fun. But I definitely wish I could have been more in tune right now. But I mean, League's just something that's always like ever evolving. So if you miss a little bit, you kind of miss a lot. It's not something that stays very stagnant for long.
There's so much you have to take in as well. Like so many different scenes that have all got their own little sorts of pocket playstyles starting to evolve, their own little metas, and there's just so much to take in, like you said. And you know, maybe something that might emerge, some kind of talking point that you could see in some distant region that might have emerged here. Maybe, you know, maybe things like the Rek'Sai and the Tryndamere are popular all the way over on the other side of the globe, but that's what we get to be here for, and seeing what is truly unique to these players, these 10 here in this deep of a regular season. We're definitely getting to start boiling down of who are going to be the top dogs heading into the playoffs, right? Teams like these two, who's going to really be able to make a deep splash and who's going to falter as we get down there. Still a little bit of a pause going on here, but University of Washington, though, I think they've got a great foundation to build on as we head deeper into the season. You know, there were a little bit of hiccups as we saw in last series. You know, they're not immortal. Their game plan definitely has some holes in it. There's some room for adjustment and exploitation, to be certain. But now that we're finally back into it, it's going to be their chance to show that that's not the case and that they've got the longevity that they need to really go deep in these games and make their name in the collegiate scene. Just a 5-point level 1, it looks like, with a tiny bit of attention short towards that both sides.
And I just noticed that it's actually, I'm not sure if it's probably not an alt account, but we don't have Sky Falls for me on jungle.
I think it's a name change. I do believe it's a name change.
Okay.
Would be my guess. I do have him on my friends list, so that is my assumption. Might be wrong, but it is the blue side who get the early level 1 ward. Not going to be contested at all by the University of Washington. And Annie Ezreal, definitely a lane that can get some priority down there in the bot lane. Of course, Zyra Rakan, with the innate synergy that they have in their kits, can get a lot done in those level 1 duels, but the power of that Molten Shield, along with the poke and the consistent damage that the Ezreal is able to provide, especially with Conqueror, double offensive spells as well, Exhaust and Ignite, I can see the blue side getting a lot of priority down there in the bot side, and maybe the University of Washington seeding that a bit for the early game at least, and trying to play towards the top side. As we see those wards there, we see the River Bush, we see the one outside to spot the invade towards the red side as well. Maybe what they're hoping for is to get the Camille ahead early and to try to take down the Tryndamere before the Undying Rage makes it that harder to take out.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, definitely going to be more of a slow early game because these are both pretty team-centered comps. And I think it's just going to be really interesting to kind of see the poke that comes out of the bot lane just this early on, because they're going to have to really be careful down there.
Oh yeah, and it's already, you can see how difficult it is to play into a level 1 like this. Complete control over the first wave between Mezzy and Fungal Pants. The Molten Shield, just so difficult to trade into. Provides damage reduction, provides the extra damage as well. And there's just nothing you can do about it. You fire on off an auto, you're taking damage. There's no chance to miss. There's no counterplay. All you can do is sit all the way back there, let your bone plating get popped, and hope you can catch as much of this wave as you can. But up here on the top lane, Setijay already level 2, already slamming crits onto his opponent. But who's this? Level 3 already before 229. Flashing after as the Sky falls from me on this Rek'Sai, but doesn't quite have enough movement speed. Gonna get knocked up instead and try to take down the Sejuani. First blood with the true damage. Takes the execute, hands over the trade kill over to the Tryndamere as Vest not quite able to move faster towards that river, but now going to try to duel it out to keep his Swain alive. Setijay has the ghost to try to chase after, has the spinning slash, gonna try to settle for a few more autos onto the Camille as he finds one for himself. 2 kills to start it off for the top lane, but first blood does go over to the jungler. as consolation for UW.
No, really nice, really early, and well done. Oh, and down in the bot lane.
From the Annie in the opposing red side jungle at 3 minutes?
Oh
What
my
is he to
God.
make her way up there? Somehow she catches him on the recall, I can only imagine, but Pass goes down for the count.
Yeah, no, wow, really, really well played by Mezzi. I mean, not expected at all, which is obviously what he was going for, and I think it was just really well executed. Really great start for Utah.
Even catching us on this side of the desk completely off guard. He made the world tour all the way towards the top side to catch the Swain totally off guard. Now, it looked pretty mildly even trade. Certainly a bad one for the University of Washington. Has aped disastrous double buffs in the top lane for the Trainer. No capitalization in the bot lane apart from a wave crash. And he able to catch a kill, but there's the trade kill into the mid lane as well. Ari already taken down with the flash being forced in that earlier fight. Skyfall's me instantly capitalizing on that summoner spell to try to even things up for the UW.
And another thing I just noticed is we have no heal in the bot lane on either side. And
Absolutely.
right at the start of the game, it was even pinged that that Xayah had the cleanse. So they were obviously looking out for that because on Utah's side, they have a lot of CCs. That's going to be a big thing that they need to keep a track of is if Xayah has her cleanse up or not.
Xayah's such a slippery champion, especially when it comes to those later fights. When you have the Feather Storm, when you have all the summoners available, it can be so difficult for even the likes of a composition that has this much lockdown to try to stop that DPS. So you can see why the University of Washington investing so much of their composition in their success, in the Xayah success, AMA's success. And look at all the bot side vision as well. Two in the river, one in the tri-bush, and even the early pink as well that's going to be spotted out. But they're really trying to make sure that AMA has as much free space to farm with. But with the wave deep down there, it could get a little bit dicey. But Cutie Shark just going to try to hover this Ari to make sure that nothing goes too wrong while that wave crashes.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, wonderful start for Utah. Even with the Ari going down later on, I mean, they played that team fight really beautifully. Like they lost the first blood, but were able to come out on top, which I think shows how well they kind of know their team and their composition and playing together. Mezzi's obviously very aware of what he can and can't accomplish, and I mean, just going around, like, that's something that not most people would think of doing, and it gained them another kill, and a pretty important one.
Yeah, and as we start to see where the action might take place, the wave's starting to build up down there in the bot lane, and Rek'Sai pathing down there as well. I expect we're going to see at least one of these junglers try to make something happen down there as it slowly builds up, but instead it's Cutie Shark playing aggressively towards the enemy top side. They know the red buff has spawned again because of how they tracked the Rek'Sai, or is about to spawn again, excuse me, because of how they were able to track the Rek'Sai off the back of that level 3 gank, and just going to try to get that early vision to see whether the Sky Falls for me heads back towards that reset, or if he's going to show even more attention towards that bot side, making sure the Ezreal and the Annie can do as much with that priority as they can.
Yeah, no, so a lot going on, and yeah, they were very aware of where Rek'Sai was, which is why they did that invade to kind of see what was happening in her other side of the jungle, keeping the bot lane safe. They're very aware of their map presence, which I think is going to work really well in their favor, because UW, I mean, has some knowledge, but definitely doesn't seem to be up to the level of what Utah is showing us right now.
Really playing it quietly now that they have the advantage. Of course, there was that invade, but knowing that the Rek'Sai was in the bot side was why they were able to get that ward. Instead, really just letting those advantages that they already accrued for themselves start to build up, right? We see the Tryndamere with the pickaxe and Berserker's Greaves already at just 7 minutes, even a longsword to boot as well, carving out an advantage just by sheer stats, right? The Tryndamere just going to win out in the side lane innately. The Annie and the Ezreal, plenty of power just by merit of their kits. They know they don't need to force things at this juncture. They know the Ezreal and the Tryndamere are going to scale very well. They just need to bide their time and not let the University of Washington bite with things like the Rex.
No, and I think it's a really smart play coming from them to get that early advantage and then kind of, again, keep looking for the cracks that UW might have, because I think they know at this point that if they give it time, they'll be able to find something.
Even something like a knockup instantly being dissuaded by Cutie Shark, not looking for any engages, right? Even has things like the flash, but not going any farther than that. Just letting University of Washington be known of his presence, going for the objective with the priority that they've made out. Gonna be trading off the Rift Herald, I expect, with the Tryndamere off the back, but I'm sure they're very happy with the composition that they've drawn up to go for the scaling advantage in terms of the Dragon. But we see Tryndamere now making a move on the pit all by himself, has no teammates with him, but is all by himself enough to force the Rek'Sai off that objective. That's the power of getting those 2 early kills in his pocket. He's taking that Pink Lord down with impunity, and the University of Washington don't emerge with an objective trade.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's scary, and you don't want to kind of test that knowledge, because if he thinks he can challenge you, he probably can.
1v3 situation, as now here's Sky Falls for me again off the back of a great CC play by Pascal. Flashes forward, finds the bite. Really well landed by those two. The jungle mid of the University of Washington find their third to get parity in these kills, an inch ever closer towards that gold disparity. But still, it's not going to get easier with how Sedajay is imposing his will in the top lane. Demolish, getting himself his second plating, another 175 going in his pocket. And with the flash already being expended by the Rek'Sai, Skyfalls for me is powerless to try to help this Camille.
Yeah, no, UW just has so much to kind of look out for from Utah, because Utah just knows what they're doing and knows how to do it really well. He's play the hero by himself. Yeah, I mean, there's really not much Tryndamere can't do, even without being fed, but with being fed, he has so many more options that just really make him a hard threat to deal with.
It's just one lane advantage. Really chafing the University of Washington's game plan right now. You can see Skyfalls for me, even off the back of a big advantage being carved out, off the back of a great DC chain by Pasco, and the two of them working together, has to just turn his attention towards the bot lane. Can't fight around those objectives. It's all he can do just to make sure that this dive can go well as Messi flashes under his own turret. Gets one, forces the Featherstorm. Ignite is down onto the Recon as the health bars are going low. Flash away from Ame. Every summoner spell being forced from that ADC, but without the Spirit Rush available, not quite going to be able to capitalize unless the flash forward. Molten Shields, movement speed is there. There's the last auto for you. Fungal Pants even sends the True Shot Barrage. As there's Skyfalls for me. Killing Spree again gets the kill onto the Ahri. He was waiting on the back of that play, and even though he wasn't able to keep his ADC alive, always finding something on the back end of it.
Really, really well done. I mean, it was just so sad because Ame almost made it out, but that Ezreal obviously has his little extra flash that he's just able to use to his advantage, and not really much Ame could do other than kind of hope and pray that he's able to dodge. And yeah, I mean, this laner is just the laner they were trying to kind of stop because they were banning him out.
Onto the Camille as well. No dodge available with the Hextech ultimatum, as we're not even going to need to see the rest of this fight pan out. He's still got a whole wave to work with. It's only a Recon to try to stop him. Sedajay has just taken the second tier turret at 11 minutes into this game, and a kill off the back end of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, they tried to ban him out through all of Champ Select. They banned 3, if not 4, characters that would normally go in the top lane to try and kind of stop him. But there's not much they can do at this point. I mean, he got that early advantage, and since then he's just been able to capitalize on with everything he's done without really messing up at all.
And what's crazy is, for the most part, this is really owed to isolation play. Right? I mean, we saw the early gank from the Skyfalls for me onto the Ahri, forcing him up the river, getting Cutie Shark involved, right? Had that little bit of a skirmish going on, but it was Sedajay who had the early advantage because of how he's able to play the wave, how he's able to get those autos in to force back the Camille, get the first move into the river. That was the deciding factor that got him those 2 key kills. And that, in conjunction with how well he was able to snowball that lead into what it has ballooned to, which is utter domination in this top lane. Up nearly 50 CS, I think. 2 entire turrets, complete with 5 platings. He can't be stopped by anybody on the University of Washington, not even the Skyfalls for me, who has characteristically collected himself 5 kills on this early game jungler.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what we saw in that one game last time, that their top laner knows what his win con is, and he's just able to play with it so wonderfully that it really makes UW's job hard, because how do you stop him?
Look at where Camille is.
What can you do?
Look at where Camille is. She's trying to make a play down there in the mid lane. University of Washington really grasping at straws here, but it's all another demolished stack for Setije. I mean, the answers, they're not even insufficient. They simply can't be presented to this Tryndamere getting in his range. Even with Flash and Hextech Ultimatum coming back available, they're so dicey when you try to face him 1v1 in that man coverage, right? Tryndamere now has an entire topside jungle to his disposal. He can even walk down and fight for this dragon that I expect the University of Washington is wanting to contest. Look at him taking the mid lane tier 1 turret down all by himself. Another plating in his pocket. University of Washington not finding anything. In the meanwhile, Camille has to teleport where Setije had simply walked. Oh, this Tryndamere is winning this game by himself as the University of Washington really just corralled everywhere trying to find something. Onto this Ari. Flash forward, knock up unstoppable on Rek'Sai, but shut down into the arms of guess who? It's Setije as he finally joins the team fight. Finds Pascal low, a big feather storm. Gets 3 low on the backside of the blue side, but Setije with the Undying Rage looks for whatever he can. Pascal's getting low. Tryndamere is forced to back up now as Camille is able to catch one with the hook shot. Cutie Shark standing his ground. University of Washington is able to capitalize on that team fight. Find 4. And only the Tryndamere they aren't able to stop.
No, beautifully played. The Flash W coming in with the ult from Diamond's Dancing. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, really. Really well played by them. They won it when it kind of looked like it was down from the start. And with the Tryndamere coming in, I mean, they had to worry a bit, but they did a really good job of just like making it all work for them.
I mean, we talked about how few plays University of Washington had available to them because of this top laner, right? We talked about how chafed their options were. They had so few win conditions, but what we saw is they were able to identify the win condition using the team fight power that they had available, right? The things like the Flash Engage with the Rakan, the Featherstorm in that choke point, the Swain, who we know was able to get so much space all by himself in the team fight, right? Even though Tryndamere was taking plates, even though he was taking top turrets, even though he had a whole topside jungle at his disposal, University of Washington force the issue in the bot side. Demand that the Tryndamere comes down there, stops hitting those plates, stops getting objectives where the rest of his team is starting to get backed into a corner. And because they were able to get themselves in a position where their composition has the advantage, they come out with 4 big kills to swing back at least in the kill lead.
Yeah, and that's going to help them, but I mean, it doesn't really put a dent into what Tryndamere can do at all, because they do need their entire team there to hopefully get something out of those fights. And with that, I mean, they weren't able to get much out of it.
He's rooted up. He's still got a Dying Rage. He is shut down. Doesn't quite have the bloodlust to catch that last heal. A shutdown. Massively going into the hands of Pasco, but now here's Messi in a little bit of a tough spot as he's going to be caught up, charmed up, knocked up, taken down by Vez. Here's Cutie Shark now joining the battle on the backhand, forcing the flash away from Ame. Funko Pants finds the Mystic Shot, needs one more, does find it to take down the bot lane. Diamond's Dancing not going to escape his grasp. 3 members of the blue side swing back into action to get the triple kill into the arms of the Ezreal and convert that into a Rift Herald instantly.
That was looking so good to start off for UW, but again, Utah knows their strengths, and they wait for the team to kind of come back up once Annie's gone, and they're able to just punish UW for even thinking about going for a second kill. So really wonderfully played by them. And again, Tryndamere died there, shut down Gold Ghost of Pasco, which is great, but it doesn't really put any dent into what Tryndamere can still do even after that.
Yeah, and what it is really the Utah knowing what they can do when they have a top laner like this, right? They are able to play with it so well, even though the University of Washington kind of had their number in the previous fight, where they were able to force so deeply in the opponent's territory that they had to answer. But this time around, send the Tryndamere down there, have him just run straight at whoever he sees, force the University of Washington to get 2 members to oppose him, and win the numbers advantage fight on the other side. That's what's going to get you the top side objective. That's how you play with something like a Tryndamere, who even though he's got all these kills in just 1 basket, is able to do so much for his team. Really well played.
No, and I mean, you just kind of remember, like, if you play League, you recall every time you have either been the top laner or seen the top laner where they just, I mean, there's nothing you can do to stop it. And especially when you're not the one who caused it in the game, it's so hard to just even try to think what to do, because there really is no answer for it other than trying to 1v5 him. And even then, the possibility that he wins or that their team gets so much out of that, because you have to like really put your whole team against to try and get something out of it. It's just, I mean, there's no right answer really.
And I think if Utah are able to learn from their mistake that did cost the 4 members in that one team fight, if they are able to play their position a little bit better, if they're just able to play as non-committally as they can, using things like the Spirit Rush, the Arcane Shift, just force University of Washington to keep fishing for things but not biting, and all the while let the Tryndamere do the work on the objectives, I think it's going to shape out really dangerously for the University of Washington. Something we can already see in just the gold graph, right? 4,000 gold is the advantage off the back of really just 1 member, but now 2, with the triple kill going into the arms of Fungal Pants on the Ezreal, who we've seen in previous series has the carry potential. I mean, it's looking real dicey when these 2 carries are the ones who have gotten all the gold, right? And now the siege on this mid lane tier 2 turret, though the wave clear is there, it's not going to be there for much longer as the dragon is a minute to spawn. University of Washington, Ava, what do you want to see them do as they prep for this objective?
I think they just need to look to pick off either, like, I think they have to go for Ezreal, really. Either Ezreal or Tryndamere, because that's where the big damage is going to be coming from. And if they don't get a pick to start the dragon, I think they'll just get team wiped. They have to just watch out and play for each other to try and get that one pick and then backing up.
Yeah, and if there's any consolation, they do have the flash timer on the Ezreal, but that's not going to stop them from doing big damage with the True Shot Barrage. Takes Pasco out of the fight with 10 seconds to go on this dragon. University of Washington seems like they're going to have to see this one away, with Tryndamere even sending the bot lane wave in as well. Easy objective over to Utes, although it's only 2 dragons so far. It's a sign of things to come as the scaling advantage gets built up, and the gold lead only grows bigger.
Yeah, UW just has to really play everything perfectly, and unfortunately, with Pasco taking that little bit of damage, they have to know that they have to give it up. But I mean, you want to do more. It's just you can't. I mean, there's really hard decisions to make in this game, and if you make the wrong one, the Tryndamere takes another tower. You know, it's just you have to be looking out for everything, and it's really hard to do that when you're in a high-paced game, especially in the mid to late game during League.
Yeah, and Mezzy, still with the flash available, could try to Tibbers any of these prime targets for the University of Washington, but as we do know, it's Skyfalls for me who's collected so many of these kills, which could really work out on paper to the University of Washington's advantage if he's able to exert that gold lead on all these other lanes. But because the Tryndamere was simply too strong, was able to 1v2 anyone that the University of Washington threw at them, only the Ahri he was ever able to look at. 20 minutes now has crested, and the rec side, that's that point when really starts to fall off this champion. At best, you can get a knock-up in. At best, you can blow up 1 member, but by that point, not much more you can do. With Setej sets his sights on the Camille, doesn't even need to commit, still can spinning slash his way out. Still escort the Rift Herald in this 1v1 scenario. University of Washington, once again, have found themselves in this choked out scenario, and one that's so much more dangerous because Baron Nashor has been spawned. Here, Skyfalls for me on the other side has the vision to try to look for some kind of knock-up, some kind of kick to try to break this team fight open, but with the Tryndamere always able to have that first move, it's so difficult.
Okay, Sejuani sounded like she used her ult there, but I don't see the cooldown. But yeah, I mean, they have to, of course, like, Vess has to kind of work at this by himself because they were looking for that Baron pressure, so he can't get any of his team to come and back up, and I think that really is the hard decision that comes from this game, is they're doing their best to try and watch every angle, but if you watch one, the other one falls. And that's what Setej's job is. And I mean, he does an amazing job at it. He is able to really play his strengths well. It just must make it really frustrating for UW because there isn't a right answer for what they can do to solve it.
I think frustration is the best word for it, right? This is one of those situations where you just really can't do much but sit there and let those waves get crashed into your own turrets. Let the opponent have their way with it. happen. Of course, that is so difficult to play into in the moment, but if there's any kind of North Star for the University of Washington to look to, it's that this kind of win condition that the University of Utah has set their sights upon is really low and slow, right? It takes a long time. It's got inevitability to it, but you've got to keep not making mistakes in order to get there. And if that's the pressure that University of Utah has upon them, then University of Washington, maybe, just maybe, have got more chances to try to find some crack in the armor, right? Somewhere where the University of Utah misses their chance on the map. They don't have the right lane allocation. If they can catch somebody not showing their part in this stance, and they can catch them with things like the Rek'Sai knockout, like the Hextech ultimatum, like the catch potential that so many of these team members have, suddenly they can blow the game wide open. But it's going to take a lot of patience, and it's going to take a lot of biding their time from the UW.
Yeah, they have a lot to look out for. And again, Utah's able to play this kind of slow and calculated game. Oh, Jesus.
Still has a little bit of HP to work with. Still no University of Washington members to try to stop him. 23 minutes is the first inhibitor take, and still UW just can't let any foot off the gas on that top side. They just have to let Sedajay do as he wishes. The Camille, one of the least wave clearing champions, especially when you're this far behind, can't get things like the Ravenous Hydra to make life a little easier when it comes to matching the Tryndamere. Now Sedajay's got the inhibitor. Now that's an entire lane that they don't have to pay attention to. He can set his sights on the top side as well. Play towards the dragon. University of Utah standing their ground in this river here as University of Washington look to force the issue with the charm knock up on. Lock it forced. Diamond's dancing already out as Messi has the tippers if he so wishes. No stun, but Tryndamere is trying to go deep. True Shot Barrage does so much damage as Sedajay's not stopping. It's going to be University of Washington trying to race back into base to stop him, but University of Utah instead have the green light to go Baron and maybe try to turn it into another objective as well. This is what happens when you're always late to the party. The University of Washington completely losing out here. It's Zook swing for the red side as Baron going to go quietly over to the blue. But not if Skyfalls for me has anything to say about it. He's eyeing on the other side. We'll see how well Utah's able to play it as they take him out. Oh, a brutal kill means another dragon if they so wish. Baron does go their way. Cutie Shark's there to secure it. Chemtech Dragon Soul Point has spawned, and University of Washington have all but exhausted their options.
Yeah, like you said earlier, it is a slow play, but it's known to work. If you can just count on your top laner to just face tank those turrets and just go for them, not really worrying about the team, if you're just the slightest bit ahead, you're able to get whatever you need out of it. Because as long as your team they might not be winning without you, but they're not losing, you can kind of just do whatever you want, which is what Sedajay does. And it works so well for them. It's a proven strategy from last time. And they've just been able to kind of capitalize on it. And obviously, UW hasn't really figured out how they can totally counter that from them.
What is it now? Inhibitors taken down in the bot lane. Baron waves on each side. The Tryndamere now turning his attention to the opposite side of the map. They can simply 1-4 it. No way to 1v2, even 1v3, I might venture. This Tryndamere in the top side as he dawns on level 16, has the flash as well. Can simply wreak havoc with his 3 items as Vest can hardly scrape by with the Divine Sunderer. Oh, it is such a brutal situation, but the University of Washington still can try to scrape together what tools they have to catch at least one pick, if only University of Utah would let them, but they just simply won't. The Flock moves as 4, even to just take Raptors away from their opponents, right? Ame, it's whatever he can do to just take their own wolves, but even with things like the Hextech ultimatum, even with things like the assassination potential that the Skyfalls for me has on this Rek'Sai, all of it amounts to naught. If you simply can't catch that player all by their own, University of Washington have got to stake this one, I think, on a base fight.
Yeah, UW really just has to count on Utah getting a little too overzealous and maybe feeding a nice ace or something. But otherwise, there's not a good look for UW.
And for a knockup into this one, Pascal's got the ultimate to try to do at least some damage onto these 3 members. Messi going low, rooted up, taken down. Pascal started this kill off with 1, but Ezreal's now taking down the support. He's still moving around. Tryndamere's now joined the battle himself as Pascal's got nowhere to go with the health bars going low. Sky falls for me, flashes after, can't find the knockup. Setej simply does not care. He's doing what he did this entire game and is killing the Nexus all by himself. A one-man show from the University of Utah, who stick to a game plan and ride it all the way to a 27-minute victory. Game 1 goes to the Utes in this best-of-5 series.
Yeah, I mean, really well played on their win con by Utah. Same thing we saw last time, and UW just really hasn't learned how to counteract Setej and his dominating top lane. The presence that comes from him, that they don't even need him for a team fight to win and let him push and do what he wants. That's what really makes the strategy as strong as it is they don't need him to be there. They can 4v5 perfectly fine while he totally just annihilates the base.
And I mean, when we do this kind of post-game analysis, right, Ava, I feel like there's really a trap that I try not to fall into, is to make this kind of like knee-jerk reaction to what we just saw, right? Something went wrong, and we immediately point at this lane as this is the problem. But this time around, I feel like it's really justified to say that the University of Washington cannot let any sort of advantage get back in the hands of Setej in the top side for the University of Utah. We simply cannot allow that to happen if we want the University of Washington win. What we saw time and time again in the previous series and proved resoundingly in this one is that if this advantage starts to accrue in the top lane, the University of Washington fold before it. They simply have an entire half of the map locked off before them. They buckle down and let all those objectives go to their sides. Of course, there's the odd team fight that they're able to come out on top of, but by and large, the entire time, it was Utah Varsity in the driver's seat in that game. Of course, all off the back of this one player. You've got to have some kind of strategy against that. Maybe if it's not playing in those topside skirmishes where he can make himself available. Maybe it's playing more towards that Xayah as we were hoping they would in that draft, but something's got to go.
Yeah, I mean, they're really just going to have to take these next 10 minutes or so between now and this next champ select finishing to figure out what they need to do to stop that snowball from getting so big.
But
And
we
I
are
think-
going to be heading into a bit of a 5-minute break as these two teams prepare for the next game in a long and winded best-of-5 series, I can imagine. We'll be seeing you then, folks. We hope you stick around. Welcome back, everybody, to this best of 5 series between the University of Washington and the University of Utah. We just came back off of a pretty devastating Game 1 loss dealt to the University of Washington off the back of really one player, and that player's name being J in the top lane, taking the Tryndamere into his hands and wreaking non-stop havoc upon the structures of the University of Washington. This time around, though, we're all hoping that the University of Washington is going to be able to make those adjustments and pull through in this long series for Collegiate League of Legends, Ava.
Yeah, I think for this next game, UW's really going to have to try and funnel Vess in hopes to kind of give Vess the advantage where he can kind of just do anything to stop Sedege. Because from these past 2 series that we've had with Utah, we know that Sedege is really good at what he does and knows what he needs to do. So it works really well for Utah's advantage when they can just kind of leave him to his own devices and know that he'll pretty much be able to manage. So I think obviously UW already knew this because for the most part in the last champ select, they were trying to ban him out in every way they could, and they still couldn't, even with all they could give for that. So I think they're really going to have to kind of put their minds together and do their best to figure out what they can do to hopefully knock Sedege down a peg and maybe make it a little bit easier for their team as a whole.
Yeah, and that's what's really scary about it, right? Is that for the most part, you can leave this player on his island, let him carve that advantage all by his own, as long as you give him that little bit of a nudge, right? It was almost no ganks, really, that were being shown up there. There was a couple, to be sure, that the Sedge was showing just some presence, but really it was just getting vision around that top side. Nothing like a dive, nothing like an odd gank on a stacked wave, right? It was just Utah letting him do his thing that we know he's able to do in these isolated kinds of matchups. So like you said, maybe what is really necessary is for University of Washington to intervene upon that rather than playing into their own win conditions on the other sides of the map and hoping that they pan out. And this time around, we're going to see that game plan starting all the way in Champ Select. Is the Tryndamere going to be a ban, perhaps? Or are we going to see something different from the tune of the University of Washington? It's going to be the Fiora to start things off. A very similar sort of character to what we just saw.
Yeah, I think it would probably be really smart for UW to ban out that Tryndamere and possibly other things Sedege plays that are able to just take tower and kind of focus in on that. But it seems so far that everything's exactly the same. There are currently no changes to these bans. Yep, absolutely no changes coming from the side of UW. So obviously they have some idea that either they would rather not even let these through, that the Tryndamere wouldn't even be as big of a problem as the Wukong, or I guess that'd be more jungle, but the Fiora and the Maokai. They really would have to kind of watch out for that, and that's more important than watching this Tryndamere.
6 for 6, same bans, but what we see instead is continued priority towards the bot side from the University of Washington. Last time around, that R1, R2 invested in the Xayah Rakan that we did see some bright flashes from, but for the most part, not able to stop the carnage of the Tryndamere, though this time the B1 is being invested, opening up some potential counter picks, I can imagine, as well as support picks being taken away. But I'm interested to see University of Washington doing this again. Maybe they're admitting that, the top laner, they're pretty good, but we're just going to hope that our bot lane's better, Ava.
Yeah, no, I think our bot lane did a good job of just trying to keep up with the team last time, but there's not much you can do once that Tryndamere kind of just gets to funnel into whatever he wants to do. But I think Amei and Diamonds Dancing were able to really play it well, even with the disadvantage they were put at. So I don't think we have to worry about them as much. And hopefully if they can, Diamonds Dancing might be able to do kind of what Annie was doing, Mezzi, and kind of rotate a little more, maybe play a support that's able to kind of give more assistance to the rest of the team, because when Annie's able to roam that much and you don't get that much use out of your support, you're really kind of already putting yourself at a disadvantage when you can't even get a kill onto the enemy ADC while their support isn't there.
Yeah, Morgana certainly seems out of nowhere, but definitely makes a lot of sense into the R1, R2 we see from the University of Utah. So much CC that could spell certain death for a champion as fragile as the Jinx. even if it's not a meta pick that we're used to seeing, it's a very interesting early response to two of the same picks that we saw in that game one. University of Washington seeming to show that respect to the pick potential of the University of Utah. But there's the trademark Vex from Pasco. And away in game one, but invested as early as first rotation this time around. University of Washington showing quite a bit of their hand. Of course, it is the bot lane, but the mid lane being committed this early as well. Being blinded, really daring University of Utah to show what they could do against it, as the Zeri is now the adjustment instead for the Utes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the Vex pick. I think Pasco's Vex is really, really good.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he really knows how to play it. So just seeing that brought a smile on my face because just knowing no matter what that that's going to be a fun thing to watch, I really can't complain much. And I think Vex into Ahri is also a pretty good matchup. Better earlier for Pasco than Swain would be because obviously Swain kind of needs his items more or less to really get some worth out of the lane. And the Zeri pick, I really like into the Jinx because it's going to be a lot of like headbutting and trying to get that poke off, which I think will be really fun. Kind of similar to the last game, but not quite as much. And we see the Tryndamere ban come out, so a little bit of a switch finally.
Showing that respect. And when we talk about accruing bot lane advantages, we saw how much damage Annie was able to do simply by putting that E on her ADC. This time around, maybe the Morgana could fight back a little bit better with the help of the Black Shield, but I'm still going to expect the University of Utah to have more say in this bot lane. But with that in mind, Pasco on the Vex, that signature pick that we always talk about in these settings, in these playoff settings. This is going to add an extra co-pilot for Ame this time around. He is on that hyper carry on the Jinx, but he's not going to be alone in doing so with Pasco there. But the blind pick could be scary, could really shut down Pasco, who we know provides a lot of stability in the early game, is really not prone to giving away a lot of those advantages. Saw how much he was able to do in game one, as Xin Zhao is the blind pick jungler for the Utes.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Xin Zhao, mostly because when he's on my team, it's fun, and when he's not on my team, I am a little miserable. So I think this will be a really good pick to kind of bring some more aggression out of Utah's jungle, because the Sejuani has aggression, but she's not able to do too much with it without her team. So I think that'll be a big switch up for UW to kind of have to counteract.
Yeah, and you want to talk about aggression. Skyfalls for me has taken another one out of the pocket. He's really reaching into his bag here as he brings another one out of the void. Kha'Zix is going to be the jungler for the University of Washington, paired alongside Vess's Irelia. Some real big deviations that we're seeing in this game too, compared to the first loss.
Draven Hover. Oh, what a choice. Interesting. I'm wondering if they're doing a little April Fooling like you were earlier. You had me a little
Can't talk
scared at
about
the
the hovers,
start. You had me a little lost for a second because I totally forgot that it was April Fools, and I was a little I was like, what is he talking about? But no, really excited for this game. I think this comp is much better suited for how UW likes to play compared to the first game. Also, really surprising that we got a Camille ban because I didn't think that she was that big of a problem last game, but obviously Utah was able to kind of see that without them having Tryndamere, she might be a bigger deal, which I think would be really smart and probably like a quicker thing coming from them, which is interesting.
Here's a really big exclamation point in this draft, Ava, is that last time we saw Setijay single-handedly put his team on his back and ride all the way to victory on the back of a hyper carry champion in the form of the Tryndamere. This time around, he's playing for the team in terms of the Malphite, who, of course, is no slouch when it comes to laning thanks to his previous buffs. Going things like the Comet and the Scourge makes him an absolutely devastating force to be reckoned with early, but not going to be able to wreak as much havoc on the map on this sort of pick. He's really going to be setting up the rest of his team, namely this Zeri, for success by picking this sort of champion, ceding a lot more of that mid game away to the Irelia, who got maimed, Vest did, in that 1v1 matchup. So super interested in seeing that University of Utah going for a totally different game plan when the first one worked so well.
Yeah, no, but I think this completely adds up to what they normally do. They're really good at completely switching it up and kind of throwing what they're doing on their head. They have so many options when it comes to it because both times last game, one game they had the top laner push into the base and end the game on his own, and the other time it was just team fighting. So they have those two strategies, and it seems like they just kind of work back and forth to really make it harder for the teams they're going against to have any kind of counterplay to it, because they're always switching it up and changing it. And I think that's really smart, because it's obviously been able to throw us off our feet a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been able to kind of, it's unexpected, because you think if one strategy works, why not continue with it? But they have that kind of different opinion that's really, really smart, where they can just kind of do what works for them, and they can be very flexible.
Throw a lot of the adjustments that the University of Washington might have made off their toes, right? What do we see from the University of Utah? A lot of these frontliners to make space, things in the form of the Xin Zhao and the Malphite, who are really immovable unless you can get up close and personal. And even then, so much durability between them. A lot of the pick potential that we saw being used to great advantage, right? The Annie and the Ahri were the immediate picks for these two teams, now bolstered by the follow-up available between the Malphite, the Xin Zhao, even the Zera if she wants to dash into action. But what we do see as well is a lot more of a single-sided game plan from the Utes. Last time, it was both the Ezreal and the Tryndamere who were able to put that carry pants on. If one of them falls, if one of them's caught out of position, no problem, as the rest of one has all the free reign in the world to do that auto attack damage. This time around, it's really all in the hands of the Zeri to do the damage should the game get to that point, right? So definitely a window for the University of Washington to look into and try to shut down the inevitability of their opponents. But on the other composition, a lot of individually strong picks, don't you think, Ava?
Yeah. When you mentioned the tankiness, I hadn't even really thought of that, is that UW does not have very much tankiness. They're more for doing the fights and the assassins, so they're going to have to be playing really careful for something like Ahri and Annie, who have that quick burst, and Zeri, who doesn't have quick burst, but she has bursts that can go kind of long, and she's able to just slowly poke you out. So they're going to have to be really careful to watch out for that. But I think it's really smart to play more this, because this is how they seem to normally enjoy playing, which is just watching for those little holes and just full all-inning it to really attack the other team.
And I think that enjoyment factor of it that you mentioned really cannot be understated, even in a situation as serious as this one, this best of 5 series, right? We need the University of Washington to loosen up, to show us something, to break out of those pains that the University of Utah had put them into off the back of a back-breaking early game in that game 1. Here's a new game, new series, new team composition this time around. Show us something new, University of Washington. Let's see some of that fun, some of that enjoyment, some of that loose play style that we know this team is so great when they can get into the fold of.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I'm excited to see.
I've already stated it. I'm so excited to see the Pasco Vex, because every time it comes out, it's just, I mean, it's played really well. And sorry for the interruption.
Oh no, you and I had the same point we were going to bring up. When we see Sky Falls for Me on an assassin alongside Pasco, we saw it as early as last series. We know that these two have the communication and the coordination to really pry their way into the backline and blow up a single member. And if there was ever any opportunity to do that, faced with an enemy team composition, it's got to be against the Zeri, right? Because the engage is there, the pick is there, but the peel, not quite going to be as available for Fungal Pants, who is the sole carry come the mid and late game for the University of Utah. So if these two can pull it together, I think we're in for a real treat, Ava.
Yeah, and I think lucky for Vess is that Setege is going this more team fight heavy character. So hopefully Sky Falls for Me will be able to more funnel Pasco and Amei down in mid and bot lane.
Now, what
early fight coming out here.
Being forced as early as 135. Wow, the top lane dynamic has been drastically changed with just an early ward off the back of Setege, who seemed to really be feeling himself all by himself as the Xin Zhao starting in the bot side, right? That was really dicey just to try to get some early information, and now leaving himself really vulnerable as well. He's not going to have as much laning power, I don't think, having gone press the attack instead of the Arcane Comet, right? So he's not going to get as much of a health advantage in this early lane if Kha'Zix so wishes. If Vess is able to get some of those stronger trades, more advantageous trades, Kha'Zix turns his attention over, could be lights out for the top lane, and suddenly a drastic shift in this series character. But so far, Vess still backed off that minion wave.
Yeah, no, it seemed like for a second there, CLoL forgot he wasn't as scary this game as he was last, and that he thought he still kind of had that dominating presence. So, I mean, Flash had to be forced out, but he still has that early advantage over Vest where he is tanky, and with Press the Attack, if Vest tries to go in at all, he can just kind of take it and just still deal the damage back without having that much
The blood
damage.
in the water.
punished.
It's already been started. There's no way for the Xin Zhao to get here in time. CLoL, simple kill. First blood for the University of Washington. 2 textbook for this squad as they're able to capitalize off that flash so early. Kha'Zix with no hesitation goes straight off the level 3. And now all of a sudden the top lane looking a lot easier.
No, really, really beautiful play coming from Vest and Skyfalls for me because they knew he didn't have the flash, which means if he's pushed up, he has no mobility whatsoever to get out because he doesn't have his ult either.
Whips the wind becomes lightning. Flash combo can't quite connect with the extra range on his dash. Really costly there, as might have spelled a kill with Mezzi on the map for that roam, but at the very least, it's going to be the flash from Pasco. Not quite going to measure up against the first blood that the University of Washington found, but it's something.
No, great reaction coming out there from Pasco.
Oh, a lot of auto range. Cutie Shark's here to keep his top laner alive and turns the tables. Vest goes down where he thought he had the advantage. Had known that the Xin Zhao was there on the top side, but did not respect it. Oh, the Irelia already sending back that advantage there. And with no teleport available, look at where the wave is. Gonna lose so much off the back of that play there. Really can't let that happen when you've got that information.
Yeah, just a little bit too greedy out there coming from Vest. I mean, obviously, he knew that the Xin Zhao was coming up the jungle. I think he just hoped that he had gone a little farther. And
somehow created a kill in the mid lane. Off the back of that flash being taken away by his jungler. Didn't even need that kill off the back of that game because he does it all himself. There's the solo kill for you that we saw the previous time around. We're being dealt to him instead. And now it's him taking down Pasco's Vex all by himself. Look at that from the University of Utah as they take the kill lead 2-2 versus 1.
Yeah, this just, I mean, you get that your hopes up at the start with like that first blood, but Utah can still find those holes to just poke. All they have to do is just kind of keep an eye on UW without overextending until they see that difference.
Ame all by himself in the bot lane. As we know, Mezzi, a big fan of those roams, especially on a character like Annie who's got so much extra movement speed. Now waiting in the wings of this mid lane. Pasco, we know, has no flash. Central might not be able to follow up with a charm this time around, but they're just there making sure that if this Vex oversteps, she's going to pay dearly for it. Not much else to do, right? But the Zeri backed under the turret. No kill threat there. It's going to head back to base and get by. But let's try to take stock, Ava. We've seen the first blood go over to the Irelia. We've seen the top lane dynamic be shifted a bit towards the University of Washington, especially against a little bit of a weaker setup in the form of the Press the Attack Malphite. But now, with that kill being handed over, with some priority now in the mid lane, who are you liking in this early game so far?
Just overall, or which team?
Yeah, where do we think is going to be the priority?
Well, priority, I think, for UW now, with Vest giving that early kill, but then getting greedy, I think they really have to look for trying to get the bot lane ahead. Because, again, Annie is roaming all over the place, and they're not able to punish at all because Fungal Pants knows that when Annie's gone, he just has to sit under tower and kind of wait, and there's not much UW can do to punish that. So I think they need to be shown that there's not as much freedom for Annie to travel on her own.
Damage being done, laser beam, and Cutie Shark secures that kill onto Diamond's Dance. Just wanted to walk back to lane after sending that binding over, but that's really dangerous for the University of Washington because look how big the wave has been stacked by Fungal Pants. Jinx is going to have to farm that one under turret by herself, and not at risk of dying is going to mean the Ocean Dragon being sent over. And once again, the scaling has begun for the University of Utah. Really starting to run away with this one, if ever so slightly.
Yeah, they see that one overextension, and their whole team is just always able to be everywhere. I mean, other than the top lane, they're really good at grouping up and getting those picks. UW, I think, counts more on one or the other to kind of watch out, but they don't group up and find those issues coming out of Utah as much, which is the biggest problem.
Oh, and an ultimate being committed. That's a level 4 Morgana. That's a flash under the turret. That's Fungal Pants not quite finding the damage that he needs as the Black Shield finally finds its way onto the ADC, but no kill being committed. Instead, just a flash being forced from aiming. Single summoner spell at the expense of Fungal Pants' own. But what it ultimately is forcing the opponents away from their own turret. They've got the Xin Zhao down there to get themselves this plate. Gonna be really dangerous for the University of Washington without Pascal moving down there himself. 3v3 situation, but just the plating being created. Those are those kinds of trades, those small sorts of things that can start to make that gold lead built up just a little bit. Ultimate doesn't quite connect from Pasco off the back of that roam. He's making his way back to the mid lane as things very dicey down there, but Utah ultimately keeping their hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah, and I think this is where like my biggest issue comes with all this is when I see Annie and Zeri going in like that and I see someone coming down, I'm hoping it's Sky Falls for me, but it's just more backup coming from Utah. And that's really where they're playing well, is because even with their team being the dominating force, they're not being punished for it, and actually they're gaining on it because they're able to just bring more teammates down and just kind of keep that hold on, rather than Sky Falls for me coming in and killing those two pretty low bot laners.
What it ultimately amounts to is a lot less proactivity from the University of Washington, whether that's because of the style that they've chosen for themselves with the composition, or because of the options that the University of Utah has limited to them. And of course, like you said, even if it's not the Sky Falls for me, being the one to come down there and capitalize on those numbers plays, at the very least, he is starting to come online 2 levels over his opponent, the Xin Zhao, who we know much more reliant on ganking than the Kha'Zix. And of course, the Assassin from the Void, not much of a scaling threat to be certain, but up about 25 CS at this base, around 6 camps already. Even if he isn't going to be a scaling threat to rely on, he is starting to get those items online. Off the next back, I expect he's going to have that full mythic completed, and maybe that's going to be the green light for the University of Washington to start looking for these plays. But flash stun from the Messi, no way to go away from that one. Essential commits the Spirit Rush, has one more bit of damage that he needs. There's the kill over. No way to take down the Annie as the trade. Kha'Zix already headed back to base, even though he was in the area. Sky Falls for me has finally found the Power's Claw in that inventory, but is it too little too late? Because we already see 2 kills on the Ahri, 2 kills on the Xin Zhao, 2 champions who are able to make their way all across the map to make plays happen, where Kha'Zix simply has not.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had that really early.
The map plays are already starting to happen. Kha'Zix barely always lagging behind, and Fungal Pants has free reign in this bot lane. Kha'Zix there hovering, trying to make something happen. Cutie Shark has spotted him, though. There's no surprises. They bring the Ahri back over. He's got to try and make the play now. Prowler's Claw over. Looks for the Sport to start things off. A bit of a 1v1 to start with, but it's the ADC being taken down all the while. He's trying to fight it out with the Annie. Does catch at least 1 kill, but no way to walk away from this one. Double kill goes over to Fungal Pants. 7-2 is the scoreline, and the University of Utah have been ready for everything UW has thrown at them.
Yeah, and even, I mean, level advantage. Cutie Shark has more kills than Sky Falls for me. Sky Falls for me has more CS, but still, he's just able to capitalize on so much. Whereas Sky Falls for me, where normally in this role, we'd see him playing super aggressively and ganking. Cutie Shark has taken that role, and we've seen Sky Falls for me just kind of in his jungle, which is obviously what they're going for currently. But it makes you want kind of to go back to when Sky Falls for me would just be in every lane all at once, because it really seems like that jungle has flipped, and Cutie Shark has taken over that role fully.
It's what we're seeing is finally a team, I think, who has the mechanics, has the laning prowess to go toe-to-toe with the University of Washington. When they can't accrue those advantage simply by pure laning, when those sorts of things don't start to pan out, Morgana bindings going wide, Pasco getting solo killed in the mid lane, even Irelia, after catching a first blood, getting big damage done to her by the press the attack. So many less options than they're used to seeing, right? So much less proactivity available for Sky Falls for me, who we see in that first play that he's finally able to make, finally getting himself that Prowler's Claw. Sheer desperation, forcing it, jumping over the wall with the Prowler's Claw, just trying to get at least 1 kill on the no mana support and trading his life for it. University of Washington really chafing themselves as far as what they're able to do here. They've got to try to make something coordinated and not simply wait to try to find some kind of mistake, because what we're really starting to see, Ava, I think, is that University of Utah is not letting up.
Yeah, no, and I mean, again, they're able to switch this comp fully and still have no issue with finding those cracks. And it also, I mean, it just goes back to the fact that UW always just kind of seems to be a step behind Utah, and Utah kind of always seems to know exactly what UW's doing, as if they're kind of reading them like a book. It sucks to see because we want our team to do so well, but you have to just appreciate how well Utah knows what they do. Because like last game where Setege kind of knew that he needed to just push lane rather than...
Everfrost is available. Tibbers is going to be committed, but can't quite finish it off without the Spirit Orb connecting on that true damage. Dash after, doesn't quite connect. Central finds it anyway. Messi goes low to take up that turret as he goes under again. Pasco's able to answer back with 1 kill onto the ADC, but Diamond's dancing can't do much all by himself. Pasco in the support, stuck onto the turret. Here's 3 members still looking after them as the ultimate goes wide. Waves coming in. Cutie Shark smells the blood in the water as he lands 1, gets the ultimate. Flash after stopwatch from the Morgana to catch them under the turret. They can get the turret shot onto 1,
Ooh.
but it's ultimately going to be killed over to the support. But at the very end of the day, University of Utah find the kills that they want to get the plates in their pockets. Malphite taking the blue buff by himself, ulting it to boot. As here's a bit of a 1v1 for you between him and Vest. Flashes over, little bit of an ankle break, but going nowhere now as University of Washington gonna be finding at least 1 kill, it seems, unless Malphite can ball plant his way out of this one. Nothing for the Huskies in the top side as University of Utah and the slugfest in the bot emerge with the turret take. Even a stun being committed as well. Charm landing. Skyfalls for me has fallen again. Trying to take the Infernal Dragon all by himself, but not enough respect being shown to the Utes. 3 members now to take the objective. Nothing to be done by the University of Washington. The wheels are falling off the bus, Ava.
Yeah, as I was saying before all of that happened, it really seems like Cutie Shark is kind of taking over the role of knowing what really he needs to do for his team. Whereas last game we had a Setege who knew he just basically needed to push towers and not really worry about much else. Cutie Shark knows that he doesn't really need to worry about his jungle or his farm much. He just needs to keep pushing and pushing into all of the side lanes, hoping something sticks. And it is sticking. He's able to really find and help his team everywhere he goes without too much of an issue.
The disparities on this item board are absolutely backbreaking, Ava. Look at what we're seeing here. 10 stack Magi's in Central, who took a quieter back seat in the first game. Just landing those charms, just making those engages happen, now has been merged as a massive damage threat. Look what's happening in the top lane. 2 daggers in the Malphite's inventory? That's not something you see every day. And not to mention the mythic advantage in the bot lane. Nearly 30 CS accrued over his opponent. Xin Zhao coming ahead with the Gore Drinker, where the Kha'Zix was trying his best just to farm and keep parity. Everywhere it's falling apart for the University of Washington. Got to try to for something. With these 2 assassins, I can imagine, with the Morgana binding, don't just let these people walk all over you because they're going for this Rift Herald. You've got to try to find something on the other side of the map. Otherwise, this is going to emerge as an even bigger stomp than Game 1, I can imagine.
Yeah, and we have 4 mythics coming out from the side of the Utah compared to just 1 mythic on UW, and well, Aurelia has her legendary item. Unfortunately, her laner already has his mythic, so it doesn't really change that much for her, even with it. And Sky Falls for me, again, had that level advantage. He was 9 and Cutie Shark was 8, and Cutie Shark has just been able to put up 2 levels and be back in front. So it's going to be really hard for Sky Falls to come back.
Oh, Spirit Rush back, but the turret can't be taken down. Ultimate full goes in! Ignite doesn't quite tick down on him, but he's still stuck between a rock and a hard place as here's the Kha'Zix on the other side, flies over the charm! No way he created that kill! Under his own turret, Kha'Zix flies in to try to find something. He is going to get the shutdown. Doesn't quite trade back with the turret shot, but Central creates 1 out of nothing. Showing what he can do when he's got this much of an advantage, and all the while it's Fungal Pants in the mid lane breaking that mid turret. University of Washington get the shutdown, but at what cost? Whoa, the style shown from Central. Really showing this game, this character.
Yeah, I mean, you have to feel so bad because that big, I think it's Vex's W still hit, but because Pasco doesn't have his item yet, his mythic item, or didn't during that fight, he isn't able to get the damage. Whereas if that hit and he had his item, I think Ari would have died, but instead he loses a life for it and she gains a little bit of health back because of her passive.
So well played from Centrio under that turret. He knew there was only one way out of that one, and it was through, and he found it. And now the University of Washington might have collected 800 gold into the pocket of the Skyfalls for me, and maybe with the single target damage that he's able to provide, that could be a big boon, but the gas is not letting up. They really have to try to create something proactive here with this kind of composition. And if there's any consolation, it's that when you've got champions like these, it can come down to sheer mechanics in order to create these kinds of out-of-nowhere plays that we see from Central. Pasco and the Kha'Zix, the Sky Falls for me, the Charm locked up, nowhere to go for Vex. Teleport now being committed. It's a 1v3 situation. Vex has got to try to find his way back under his own turret. As Senjay doesn't have the flash, doesn't need it. Central has aimbot on his charms. I think that's what happens when you have 10 stacks of Magi's as they continue the onslaught under the turret. ADC 1v1ing, dashing under the assassin. That's not how this one is supposed to go. We know it's April Fool's Day because this is completely backwards domination by the University of Utah. 18 minutes. Herald being sent, inhibitor going down. We might see a dancing Shelly, Ava.
Yeah, I mean, you really just at this point have to appreciate how well Utah knows their win cons and knows their team. It really is just so beautifully played by them that you want, I mean, from being on the side of UW, you want to be mad at it, but you really can't, because when you know League, you have to appreciate someone who really knows how to play their game well, and Utah does. So this is so fun to watch, but it's just sad a little deeper down because you know what comes out of it.
He's under an onslaught here as Kha'Zix tries to find something, but with 4 members chasing after him, he's got to get out of this one. Senate can't, though, as on the back of end of that one, he is caught. Skyfall falls for me. Oh, there's the ult out to the ADC. This might have been what they're looking for. Dash under with the Irelia as well as the stun. It's not going to be blocked by the Black Shield, but they're still going in all the same. And he's there. Auto damage being done. Dashing through the wave. Needs one more to get that triumph stack. Triple kill for the Irelia. One more can do it. Oh, almost a penta. There's the ace, though. University of Washington roar back to life off the back of a 1v4 play by the Sky Falls for me. And a dragon is going to be their prize for this one.
No, see, and that's exactly what we know UW for, is finding when they can find that one crack, which is getting the pick on Setege, and Sky Falls for me somehow making it out of 4 people chasing him, getting able to get everyone with only losing Pasco, and Pasco still getting so much damage into that fight that it's worth it at that point. You can't ask for much more. Just really well played by them, and that's what we know UW for, is finding when they can find those cracks, really, really doing it well, and just playing it amazingly, because there's nothing, that's just textbook team fighting right there. It was beautiful.
And this is why they drafted these champions. We talked about how well they play when they're on these mechanical monsters that really allow them to show their stuff. This was it right there off the back of what, a 6,000, 7,000 gold lead, I can only imagine. But using the sheer mechanical prowess that they have on champions that have the high potential to show it in order to create that ace out of nowhere. And although here's the University of Utah, still well in the lead, able to start that Baron on their own. Charm being caught onto the Irelia. No way into this one unless the Sky Falls for me can break into the back line. Oh, support somehow trying to make some space, but not going to find anything. 4,000 is the health bar. Kha'Zix hasn't been spotted, but they know he's down there somewhere. Central's there to try to get him with the aura, but he's still fishing for the steal. They're holding the damage. 2,400 is simply too high. He's going to steal it on the stage! Sky Falls for me! Brings the Baron down before him, before 5 members of the University of Utah. And once again, out of nowhere, they remain in this game.
No, beautifully played. I mean, just able to run around the entire Utah, jump in, steal it. He dies, but 3 people on his team are still able to keep the Baron buff, whereas if they got it, it may have been game over for UW. So just, I mean, nothing more you can really ask from a jungler. Sky Falls for me, I mean, he knows what he's doing, especially when he's on these assassin characters where he can just kind of do his best, and I think he's finally figuring out his footing in this game.
there's nothing to call it but a supreme display of talent. It looked like absolute zero opportunities for him to get anything done there. The Morgana had already given his life. The Ahri was completely zoning the rest of his team. He was already playing hide and seek with the rest of the other members, with Central still with the flash, still with 2 spear rushes to try to chase after him. A pure desperation play to just get in there at 2.5k HP and somehow gets the damage that he needs, finds the isolation angle, secures the smite. A miracle off the back of this jungler, and even though, once again, we have to reiterate, the University of Washington remain well behind in this game. If there was ever a window for them to win it, this was the universe to do it.
Yeah, I mean, even being behind, they are playing this so well now. I think they're really figuring out what they need to do in order to kind of come back from this. And it's showing with the ace coming out, with now Sky Falls for me.
There's something for the
figuring out. And the root
jungler, although he has the ultimate, there's Sky Falls for me finding whatever he can. The ultimate is blocked from the Vex as they go back in anyway. Cutie Shark staying alive with the Gore Trigger. Vest is with the one to get that reset. Ultimate onto 2. J slapping down the Vex, and though he gets one onto the opposing solo later, let's see how much more the University of Washington can do. Central staying alive with the Spear Rush, gets the charm onto the last. Ame still alive, but there's no one left to make space for him. University of Utah scrap it out and come down a little bit on top with a 2-for-3 team fight.
Yeah, but even at this point, 2-for-3 isn't great for them. Losing 2 people to UW, who they're so ahead of, not as much anymore. It's not a great, it's a good trade still, but it's better for UW to be able to get those picks and try and get some of that gold back. Really well played by both sides, and Ahri got so low at one point. So sad to see that they couldn't quite figure that out, but I'm glad they are watching to make sure they aren't overextending and kind of greeding for these kills, because you do have to realize when enough is enough in these games.
Needle is just not moving. That 4,000 gold barrier still stands between them and their opponents, but the University of Washington, the clouds are starting to clear. After that 18-minute inhibitor take, that was so much extra gold and experience being funneled into whoever was taking those super minion waves. The Baron as well, 1,500 in the pocket. All these little advantages that have not been pushing things as far as team fight wins, they're starting to accrue. They're starting to turn into Diamonds dancing, having to keep himself alive. Doesn't have the stopwatch this time around, but a pick onto the jungler all the same. With the dragon spawning, could be something. Aurelia's going into the back line and finds one onto Mezzi. Central keeps himself alive with a stopwatch. Best is doing his magic. Pascal flies in himself as the ADC is free. The ADC is free, but now it's all over for them as he's the next to fall. Can't move away from that Malphite as the University of Utah clean house. Ace for the Utes. Into the bot lane it is. The dragon still spawned. Every wave is theirs to work with, and although they did their best, the University of Washington, I think it's finally time out of the sun for them, as now the bot lane wave comes in and the gold lead grows ever farther away, Ava.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue at this point is Morgana, when she doesn't have her ultimate and her stopwatch, she really can't be risking going out and warding like that. Although it's helpful, she's more important to have for those team fights than another ward is. So I think just Diamonds dancing is just overextending a little too much, which is so unfortunate because they really need her at this point, because Mezzi is such a functional part of the Utah team, but not having Diamonds dancing for UW is really just putting them at a disadvantage at the start. And they're trying to get what they can out of it, but it's not enough without that extra support help, which is really what the point of having a support like Morgana is for those team fights rather than being picked up first.
All for nothing if you can't get the Black Shield onto the targets that matter. If Vest could keep himself alive a little bit longer, could resist a few more of those spells. If Diamonds Dancing had just not been caught there, I mean, you can get all the miracles you want, but none of it matters if you can't execute off the back of it. And that really might have been the straw that broke the UW Camel's back, as now University of Utah roaring back to life. Things were already hard as it was, but they're going to try to get the kill anyway. Even Mezzi can't be assassinated by the Cossacks as he dashes his way out Dollar. Doesn't quite get the damage that it needs onto these two, but the University of Washington not relenting from trying, and that's what you want to see from them if you want to see them win this game. They're still looking for things off the back of the cause. They're still trying to make these proactive plays. They're waiting for these moments where they know University of Utah are going to try to break in and take space, and they're always waiting for them. Might not work out all the time. Have got to try if you want to stay in this game. Root onto one. Here's Pasco to try again. Ultimate could be committed if he so wished. It's Diamond's dancing, following after with a stun, and that's a flash being forced. Small things for the University of Washington that could amount to something big. But speaking of big, there's a Malphite breaking down these Nexus turrets, and only one member to try to stop him. Baron Dance is being done on the other side, but this guy cannot be moved, not by the likes of Aurelia. Takes the 1v1 to him. On the other side, though, are we seeing anything happen? Ultimate committed. The Aurelia goes low and gets solo killed in a second. One more auto. Mastery emote. That's the kill over to Sedej with the Blade of the Ruined King, and University of Washington's got to try to answer him now. Teleports available. Cutie Shark's taking this Baron down. 4 members of University of Washington funnel in, but they know that the Unleashed teleport into the base remains the question. 1,000 gold shut down onto the aura is a big way to start this fight now as Cutie Shark staying alive, not for much longer. Ame cutting it out. Uncle Pan's doing it all with the Zeri damage. Messi's there to give him the shield if he so needs it. The Kha'Zix's trying to find the rich hits. The recall Fungal Pants will not give it to him. Malphite's teleported into the mid lane now and has found the kill onto the opposing ADC. Not much longer for this world is causing his, I imagine, as Fungal Pants finds the slow, gets the laser beam, bash over, try to find something. Kha'Zix make it out of this one alive because this Malphite's breaking down the base. Super minions down there as well, as he's gonna be able to walk it out, I can expect, but at what cost? Aurelia finally spawned, Missy Flash after finishes it off. University of Washington can't have anything around here as the 2-man Baron. The turret's being taken. University of Utah take away both my last breath and the University of Washington's. As this one's all but written, Ava.
Yeah, I mean, you have to try and give UW some applause because they really do figure out most of their cracks the longer the game goes on rather than kind of making more. But once you're this far behind in terms of kills and items and just objectives overall, it's really, I mean, it's hard to come back from that. And they're doing their best. You have to appreciate it. They are playing really well. It's just Utah is playing better right now. And even on a character like Malphite, Sedej still able to go in and backdoor and drag away our top laner to have to come and fight for him while Baron's up.
Just unbelievable to see at this point. Utah showing up in such a big way and in every single lane. So many different drivers of this bus. It's all amounted to this. The final push I can expect at the University of Washington. Corral whatever they can. Stopwatches in the inventories, but the wallet's just so far behind. They're going to try all the same, though. Cleansed away, dash back over. The ADC's out of the fight for a second, but they've only been able to kill their own mid laner as Vest does what he can. Stunned up. It's all over now for the Huskies as Central sends in the victory lap. Shirelius after the Malphite ultimate.
And that's the GG.
In this game. There's the ace for you. There's the 20 kill lead for the University of Utah. 30 minutes this time around, but it's all for the 2-game lead in this best-of-5 series as the University of Utah proves that they are the victors.
Gosh, beautifully played again by them. And you really, I mean, they have these 2 completely separate comps that they're able to play so well. One where it's just a top laner who's able to kind of do what he wants, and another where you have the mid laner and the jungle just kind of take over the game. So really beautifully done by them. I mean, it is just great playing. So you can't ask for much more. Central just doing an absolutely wonderful job against Pasco's Vex. I mean, not something you expect when you see Pasco pick Vex, but Central knowing exactly what he needs to do and getting that early solo pick and just being able to kind of go off of that for the rest of the game.
A statement game from the mid laner of the University of Utah. Was victim of so many ganks from the Skyfall 3 and Pasco in that game 1. This time around, takes head on the blind pick signature pick of Pasco. Says, all right, you want to show that kind of ego? I can play that game as well. Hits every single charm in that game. Gets the solo kills. Wreaks havoc all across the map. Gets that 10 stack Magi's and never lets go of it. absolutely star in that one. Like I said, every member of the university big, right? Setej being star in that game one. And this time around, taking him onto the Malphite, we thought for a second maybe he's going to be playing more for the team this time around, but I've got to apologize to him. I was not familiar with his game. I was not familiar with the fact that he can get first blooded, build Frostfire, Blade of the Ruined King, all the same, go full split push, and continue have his way in the side lane. I mean, what an absolute statement all around from the University of Utah as they go up game to series point in this best of 5. We're going to all have to take a 5-minute break after this one, folks, but we hope you're going to stick around to see the potential conclusion of this series, or if the University of Washington can find a way to rally back.
Welcome back, everybody. 2 games in this best of 5 series between the University of Utah, the University of Washington. 2 losses doled out, distinctly devastating fashion to the University of Washington. It is looking dire if you're a fan of the purple and gold, but if ever there was a chance for this team to rally, it's got to be now, because there's no more chances now. They've got to find some way to fight back against all the myriad game plans that the University of Utah have thrown against them, all the different ways that they have of winning league games of League of Legends. They've got to try to make this one their own as we head into Champ Select. Ava, what could we possibly see to get the Huskies back into this one?
Gosh, at this point, it's so hard to think because last time we had our one win and then we saw the 2 different team comps come out of Utah, whereas this time they start with that. And it really doesn't seem like, other than the first blood and just that last game, that UW really had the upper hand on Utah. So I'm really going to have to wait to see what UW is thinking with their picks before I can really decide what they might need, because it's so hard to kind of see ahead at this point with everything that Utah has put forward already.
I mean, if there's any adjustments to be made, they're not starting in the bans, at least so far. Continue to have the phasers, as we saw before. This time around, it's actually the Vex being taken away from Pasco, even though we saw such a command of that matchup being shown by Centrial in game 2. I'm curious why that specific deviation has been made, but the blue side has been selected by University of Utah, and wouldn't you have it, 2 games of Annie, let's make it 3. 2 victories, I can imagine what they're saying. Let's make it 3. Varus, though, has been able to get through this first phase, Ava.
Yeah, the instant bars picks comes out because Vex banned, and I think that's really smart. This is what Amay knows the best, and I think if there's a game that they can win, it's going to be when Amay is on this Varus, because he knows what he's doing playing this. And again, kind of surprising to see that UW not banning the Ahri, and possibly seeing the Ahri for the 3rd game in a row as well, after we've seen Centrial do pretty well the first game and phenomenally well the 2nd game on her.
Yeah, and it might be an indication of how they're planning to play this game, this having this draft out. But last time we saw, if there was ever an opportunity to have those backline divers together, was when the sole carry threat was that Zeri, and still did not amount to anything. And speaking of that, Zeri, once again, going to get that hyper carry under their belts. The bot lane priority has been consistent throughout this entire series. And with the Morgana once again going in the arms of Diamond's Dancing, I have to say, Ava, I don't think this bodes well for the bot lane of the University of Washington.
Yeah, I mean, they know their bot lane really well, and they know that I think their jungle and their top lane can be more flexible, which is why they really lock in this bot and mid in the first time every single time, because they have so much confidence in their mid, in their top, and their jungle, where we're seeing the exact same Annie, Zeri, Ahri, which is giving me the thought that Utah might have the advantage because that Ahri is so well played. But we do see the Veigar pick come out, which against Ahri, I'm liking and disliking, because if you can catch her in that E, you are set. But if you miss it, you have no other way of really countering her.
I haven't done my homework entirely. I think it's a mildly favored matchup to the Veigar for the reasons that but we have to talk about. If we're talking about confidence, the Annie and the Ahri, once again, like you said, go in and again. We're running it back. 3 picks of this draft, and this time around into the Morgana. They have no fear of this Black Shield. They have no fear of Diamond Dance piloting of this champion. And we're just going to have to see this time around if the adjustments that University of Washington has been able to make going to be what they need. Maybe the Veigar to provide a little bit more zone control, a little bit more space for that Varus. Maybe the fact that that Varus has entered this ADC's hands, maybe that could be the difference maker. But a lot of the same picks that we saw in previous games are going to be banned out this. So many of those top lane, side lane, one-man carry show matchups being taken away from Seta. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what he puts in this pocket this.
Yeah, and it almost worries me a little bit because obviously UW is switching up a lot of their comp every game to try and find something that works for them well. But it's also at some point you have to figure out like what do you need to keep that's really strong rather than like trying to kind of maneuver it every game, where instead you need to work on and kind of really strengthen what you already have. So seeing so many switches almost worries me. But we have the Zed pick for the Sky Falls for me jungle, I would assume, which does make me very happy.
He's not going out of this series without getting to pilot it at least once. It's so interesting to see from the University of Utah, all of these picks that they've had such command over are the ones that they're taking away and corralling now the Sky Falls to me into one of his signature picks. The Sejuani is here for Cutie Shark, and maybe the Malphite again for Sedajay, who was able to show a completely different side of this champion, building the Blade of the Ruined King and demolishing the 1v1 matchup. The University of Utah showing themselves pure stability, pure all-around roundedness in this composition. All of these things that we know they've been able to show and bring to success before. The Washington, this brick wall now have got to try to round this out with the Mordekaiser, Zed, Vhagar, Varus. These are the tools that they have to try to find. These are demons they fought before. The question is now, can they exercise them this time around? University of Washington, how are you appraising their comp, Ava?
I really, really like the Mordekaiser top pick. It goes, I'd say, pretty even with the Malphite in terms of fighting back and forth, but I think it's great for if Ari or if Zeri gets really fed this game, where he can just take, especially Zeri, out of the fight, take all that attack speed, and possibly just completely demolish her in his ult. So I think it's very smart in hopes to try and take a carry out, considering their top lane is playing the Malphite, which you wouldn't need that ult for as much because you can kind of just deal with him without it. Also, the Zed pick, I mean, I can never be mad at it. I really, really enjoy when Sky Falls for me plays Zed. I think he just knows that character really well, and it's just so, I mean, it's fun to see Zed in the jungle. You really can't ask for much more in that aspect.
The comfort I think they need. He's looked really out of place in these last two games.
Yeah.
We're so used to seeing the Skyfall have such a solid early game, getting all across knowing what lanes he needs to target, getting those early advantages. Though, you know, there's been the kill here and there. He's always been a little bit off, though, in 2 games. Hoping this pick that we're so used to is going to provide that consistency that the University of Washington is longing for in their game. But composition overall, really different, I think, than that of the University of Utah, right? Last game, very similar composition to what they piloted to such great effect in game 2. And there we were calling it kind of a single carry composition. What do we see instead? Damage items being built on Malphite. Central going absolutely nuclear on the Ari. Fungal and Mezzy both doing their fair share of damage to boot. We know all 5 of these players on the University of Utah can put the carry reins on if they so need to. But talk about 5 different players with carry potential. 5 different champions on the University of Washington that each have their own ways of running away with the game. Not a special kinds of synergy or different waves of these game plans being weaved together in this composition, but all of these different kinds of individual success, I think, University of Washington. Maybe that's what they really need. Each of them to try to come alive in their own way rather than getting folded into the game plan of the University of Utah again. Hoping to see that from the University.
Yeah, I think if any of the games were to give a chance to UW to win, it would have to be this one, because for their team comp as a whole, I would say this comp is the one I would be most confident in if presented all of them. And I think if they've learned anything from these past 2 games, especially for Diamond's dancing and watching out for the jungler and the mid laner, because they're always watching for him, I think they'll be able to hopefully apply all this and really look for a win in this game and not have it be such a dominating presence coming off of Utah the whole time. The last thing you want when playing a 5-game series is to just be totally wiped 3-0, and I think that's what UW has to look for this game, is to just find those little victories and turn them into a bigger victory as a whole.
It's a last shout if ever drafted as a position. Ava, I know we've made a big deal. How many different ways the University of Utah just their game, all the different players they can put their eggs in baskets. If there's a lane you think the University of Washington needs to focus their attention, whether it's in terms of counter ganking, whether it's in terms of focus getting this player ahead, where are you hoping that they turn their attention to in this early game?
I would say I think that the attention maybe not getting the player ahead, but more or less keeping the Utah's Ari behind would be my strategy. So getting Pasco ahead in a sense, but really not letting Ari get to the point where she can just do whatever she wants and go wherever she wants without punishment at all will be the biggest win condition for them.
Do or die, folks. We are headed into what could be the final game of this series. Game 3. 2-0 is the score in favor of the University of Utah. The UW has to make their stand now. And as we've said, if there were ever the champs to do it, it's got to be these. As we fan out in what could be the final shout of the University of Washington. Mid lane, as you said, making or breaking so many of these games. And I think this is a very particular pairing between these two for the University of Washington. Last game we saw that assassin duo diving into the back line, but not really getting that mega value until it was really too late. This time around, we have Pasco with the cage. The Event Horizon able to set up Skyfalls for me on his signature pick for success. Maybe this is what we're looking for. Maybe it's the Vars, who Ame has finally been able to get his hands on off the back of 2 games of losses. Maybe that's what the University of Washington needs in order to get the late game hyper carry threats, where they know that they're able to duke it out in these fights mechanically if only they had the wallets to do so. So many question marks in this game 3, but the biggest one being University of Washington. Are they going to be able to make those proactive plays that we know they're used to, have not gotten to see?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit, but I think I understand the point as a whole. Another thing you might notice is up in the top lane, we have a little switch from press the attack to the lethal tempo Malphite. So I'm wondering if that's that. I mean, it's obviously going to help Malphite in this matchup, but even when it comes to something like Mordekaiser's ult, that'll give Mordekaiser more attack speed. So that also gives him a little bit of advantage in the long run.
Sedge is simply inventing new ways to play Malphite that I would have never envisioned. I am all for it. It's a very interesting 1v1 matchup, I have to say, with a lot of magic damage from the Mordekaiser there to negate the armor innately of the Malphite. But like you said, although Sedge all about that 1v1 domination, he's getting immortaled and losing all of those stats. Is that island sort of play style going to be enough for him as bot once again? Getting ran under their turret already by the sheer power of this Annie pick. Bid is prioritized so early in every draft by the University of Utah and has not.
Yeah, and now, I mean, they're just able to go upriver. What really needs to happen is once Sky Falls to me gets this first jungle clear done, he needs to immediately run bot to try and catch the Zeri off guard when Annie is just doing whatever she wants, like she has been every game. There's been no punishment for it, and now there's 3 in mid lane, only 3 minutes into the game. I mean, you really have to be careful when you're Pasco, because they play together so well, and you have to always be ready for someone else to be in your lane. You can't just expect it to be a 1v1 ever when you're facing Utah.
And they are able to spot that roam out this time around. Pasco playing towards the top side and dodging that bullet. But it's like you said, you can never, ever let your guard down when you've got priority, especially when there can be a Sejuani waiting in the wings. One more auto's going to do a spell. Immune Black Shield does bring him under his own turret. Flash traded between these two supports, though the Ignite was committed for Annie, but it's only going to spell even more priority for the Zeri Annie duo, even as this wave starts to bounce back, right? Ame still full health though, as Fungal Pants still trying to find his time to get that level 3. Skyfall for me is headed back to base, and I'm curious to see where he decides to next. As bot lane is warded out, the Sejuani still hasn't finished off the rest of her clear. it might be a little bit of a window for the Zed.
Yeah, and I think another interesting thing that you kind of have to consider in all of this is that, I mean, there's going to be a lot going on for both teams all the time, and especially for UW, they really have to look out for something like that because Morgana's blind peeking a bush again, even though they're pretty sure there's someone in there, which is why it's being checked. She still goes in and almost dies for it, has to use her flash to get out, and I really hope that Diamonds Dancing is able to really take that into account and kind of realize, hey, against a team like Utah, even though I might normally play more aggressively, I really need to be safe in order to try and win out this matchup because you don't want to get out this early into a series.
It was always those picks from the University of Utah, right? Never really the big skirmish, never really the objective fights. It was catching a University of Washington player off guard, off kilter. They don't seem like they're on their A game today, and that's what the University of Utah has been feasting on so far. So hunkering down, trusting in their own mechanics. That's what I want to see from the University of Washington. They're starting to see there are starting to be some bright spots emerging, at least in the top lane. Vess with the Mordekaiser really now starting to win out in isolation against Setijay, at least so far. It's only minor advantages. It's only a little bit of damage being done in these trades, but it's something. It's him standing his ground against a Hexdrinker Malphite? I would have never even dreamed that one. But it's still the 1v1 matchup that could mean so much for both of these teams. It could mean Setijay continuing to be the solo lane single-hand carry, or it could be Vess with all that magic damage, with all that tankiness, now coming out as the one big winner for the University of Washington. Stand his ground against these team fighters, who's going to take that Zerion all by himself. Could go either way, and it all depends, I think, on where these two junglers decide to take their attention.
Yeah, another thing that I think I hope UW has realized at this point is they really can't play aggressively into a team like Utah. They have to unfortunately kind of wait most things out and play it safe until they really do see a full opening instead of kind of hoping that one will be there. It seems that Utah expects that UW is going to look for every single opportunity rather than waiting for the right one when it comes to ganking and going in and fighting as a team. So I really hope at this point they realize that they just need to wait things out until they can hit their power spike, because that's when they're going to be strongest, is if they haven't given Utah an advantage and then they're able to put their advantage of being such a team fight heavy team into play.
Absolutely agree. What we've seen, even though they've had such big disadvantage to play from in these previous two games, always finding some kind of team fight to break their way back in, only for a moment. But that all depends on their ability to create that stability, right? Diamonds Dancing, lurching forward, doesn't know about the Sejuani on the other side. And although they have the bot lane hover from the Zed, might be a little bit late. But all that matters so far, themselves alive. Skyfall spotted off that pink ward. Still not quite at that level, I think, where they can really start to make their way. Look at the lethality power spikes that they could get in. Things like the Prowler's Claw, the Duskblade on the Zed, the lethality on the Vars could be doing so much damage. Now it seems like so far, trusting your advice, Ava, keeping things low and slow.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that was just shown the most right there when I got a little worried when seeing Sejuani behind the wall that Diamonds Dancing would walk up and try and get a little extra poke off without really knowing much about it. So very happy to see that they are playing a little safer than I might normally expect them to, and really hoping they keep that up and stick to it, because again, when you get excited in a game like this, you want to try and take those risks, but you really can't when playing against Utah, because Utah knows how to take full advantage of everything you're thinking of and turn it right back against you.
And if anything, this already has been a pretty advantageous early game, at least comparatively to our previous games, right? 0-0 at just 8 minutes. Guy Falls for me finding those natural farm advantages that he should in this matchup, even though the Dragons do go over the way of the University of Utah, as they have to, even though the Herald has been started by Sejuani. Now we're seeing some map movement. Now we're seeing Mordekaiser with the freedom to move onto this river, as there's the engage. Backside flank from Setijay. No way they killed that Veigar. First blood goes over again. Central still looking for something. Doesn't have the Spirit Rush to make it happen, but a 4-man play means a Herald and the University of Washington immediately backed back into that box of chafedness that they've been forced to.
No, and they just
Steal from Zed! Now ulted in onto the backline. Messi does take a little bit of damage from that death mark, but it's all to try to get out of this one. Harold been taken away. Don't think he was able to grab the. No, he did! And now he's got to try to figure out this way out of this one. No saving Private Ryan this time around, but he does have the 3-second recall. Are they going to be able to cancel it? Oh, he makes his way back to base. Thumbs down, Utah. You don't get away with this one. They might walk away with the first blood, but magic! Your magic out of the jungler of the University of Washington.
Oh, and this is exactly why we look forward to Sky Falls on Me being on this set, because of plays like that. Completely, basically, I mean, a little bit of vision, but almost completely blind on seeing exactly how much health that Rift Herald was at, and just having to go off of what he thinks he could make happen there, and still making it out of the fight completely unharmed, just losing the one person and still being able to get that advantage out of the fight, which I think overall is much more worth it. But it goes back to they lost a little bit. They lost a person because they weren't expecting Utah to be so put together. But at this point, they have to be aware that Utah will be that put together all the time throughout the entire game.
The advantages that they're getting just from sheer miracles in this series, and it seems like every time I say that the University of Washington have been shut out of their ability to play in these fights, this man in the Zed always finds some way to make something happen. And even though, like you said, still Utah remaining in their proactivity, right? At least it's some kind of response. At least it's some way for the University of Washington to get to that point where their mid-game spike is really going to come online, and they're going to be able to find their way into those team fights without being shut out from the outset. Herald now in the hands of the Zed, and many ways to bot lane continuing to shove those waves. Mordekaiser fighting for his own in the top. Even the Veigar, if they can get some kind of play down on this Ahri. So many different ways to play this for UW.
Yeah, and I'm noticing one thing with Diamond's Dancing is that he quite often throws out the cues without more of a care, and I think that's why Utah has been able to have such an advantage, is because they kind of just have to wait for him to throw it out, and then they can do what they want. Because it gets thrown out, and there's not much more that can be done.
With that one, and as he goes through the cage with the black shield, it's only to get a stun onto one. ADC's already dropped. Centrio's going in with the stun. Pascal's able to answer back, but only onto the support. There's the kill onto the other one, as well as Tibbers does some damage. Fungal Pants not quite with enough to get under that turret and finish this kill off, as Central did fall on the backside, 2 for 2 ultimately, but the bot lane does fall on the back end of it. They're going to lose a little bit of that. Try to get that crash. Now caught inside the event horizon. Bot time at least for the Zed. Fungal Pants has to find his way out of this one. Goes over the wall. Shadow not there to take him back. Now he's on the run. Pascal doesn't quite have the movement speed that he needs, but Zed's turned his attention instead onto the Sejuani. Not going to be able to get either of those kills. A flash from the Sedge Force, and ultimately a 2 for 2 that University of Washington slowly winning out on, I would say.
And you might have noticed in chat that initially he purchased the Eclipse and ended up switching it to a Prowler's Claw. He ended up undoing his purchase and deciding Prowler's Claw would be more worthwhile than an Eclipse this game, which I think is a really interesting choice, but obviously it would make a lot of sense considering how he plays and how he kind of knows how to play this Zed really well.
It's those extra little bits edge you can get on a mechanically skilled player on a high skill cap champ, right? That Prowler's Claw can get you just that little bit that you need in order to go toe to toe with a team as mechanically skilled all across the board as of Utah. I love to see it. I love to see these players leaning into their confidence, their faith in their own skill. No better example of it than Skyfall. Even if he's not able to get that kill there, it's University of Washington finally emerging at 13 minutes with 2,000 goal lead. However paltry it's something, it's going to be what they need in order to get to that mid-game spike that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think this just shows a lot, and what, like we said, was probably the best chance for UW to get a win in this series is having Sky Falls through me on this Zed and just playing carefully, which it really seems like they are. I mean, Pasco just waits under tower to try and bait, but doesn't overextend just to make sure that he doesn't lose his life there, which is really important.
4 members finding their way into the bot lane. Now Vars has found his escape route, but the Black Shield isn't going to be enough. Bound and rooted. Cutie Shark not quite able to create a kill there as the
Ooh.
fight
We haven't.
well, where 5 platings have been taken by Vest, where we've been hyping up Setijay this entire time and how he's out in isolation in these matchups. Instead, Vest coming up in a big way, getting 5 plates of gold. Bot lane 5, Fungal Pants finds 1. Flash is already forced. No way out of this one. Sejuani gets the second, as here's Pasco to try to root up at least one. Teleport from the Veigar. Not the Veigar, the Mordekaiser. Pasco's here already. Mezzi's got 1. Our vet Mezzi's fallen to 1. I can't even keep track of what's going on as Mordekaiser's got 2. Cutie Shark's next. Realize no way to get out of this one. Cutie Shark answers back only onto the mid laner, but Sentry will have the damage to take this tanky man down. Vest is on a killing spree already in this fight, and turning the power he's created in the top lane to the rest of this map, and suddenly bringing the University of Washington into full overdrive.
No, huge triple kill from him. Because, again, I was about to say when you mentioned it, wow, like, he's been pushing up, because we haven't looked up there at all, because there hasn't been any kills. He's been pushing like a madman up there, even though at the start we still kind of saw Setijay have that advantage. He's been able to play his matchup really well and turn that into a teleport and a triple kill. I think Setijay's going to have a really hard time working against this now, with Mordekaiser having that extra gold that just puts him at a disadvantage with him having only 1 kill himself.
This is so key for the University of Washington. If there was any player I wanted to see get fed, it's Vest, because that's going to so much item investment on these other players. Setijay not going to be able to get as many of those items that he needs to go toe-to-toe against the Mordekaiser in the side lane. It's like Cutie Shark suddenly going to be paper before the percent health damage of the Mordekaiser. Central certainly not got the damage to go through that tank. Fungal Pants perhaps, but only if he can get more kills than he's already got. If there's anyone that can be able to put this game on their back for the University of Washington, it's Mordekaiser. Now the Juggernaut with 3 kills. Impossible to escape from if he's already on top of you. He's got Flash. He's got 5 turrets worth of gold. He's coming off the back of a triple kill. And the University of Washington are looking right heading into the mid game.
No, this is looking really wonderful on the side of UW. I think having Vest be so fed on a character like Mordekaiser is really important compared to anything else.
Torment does some damage, forces the Yomus out at least. Ame stuck turret, but not quite a kill, but plenty of priority as they now turn 3, 4, 5 members of attention towards this mid lane. Really looking to try to crack this one before the dragon goes, but look what's happening in the top side. Mordekaiser going for yet another turret. Dead, still farming it up, nearly doubling the CS of his opponent in the jungle. University of Utah going under their opponent's turret. They're going to try to take this ball lane down again, as rooted up on the other side is this area. James of Corruption doing so much work as Ame goes in with a arrow. Takes one down, goes low but does not drop. Even the Zed not even needed as he goes towards the river. Mordekaiser breaking down the turret. Double kill over to the Veigar, who finds his way into this fight with a flash, as the University of Washington withstand the storm and win everywhere else.
Beautifully played by Ame and Pasco, getting that, and Diamond's dancing, getting the Q off into Veigar, having his E into Ame, getting that big Q right through 2 of them. Really well done. And what I even noticed is before that team fight, Sky Falls to me didn't even have the 2 assists, so he was fully 0 and had 150 farm, which gave him a bounty, which I think is just impressive because he doesn't have kills, but he is playing around so well, able to have a bounty even without having participated much in team fights themselves.
Show the Protean has entered the inventory of the Mordekaiser. This guy looked unkillable already. It's all hope has lost, I think, in order to take this guy down. Merc treads as well. All the lockup between the Ahri, the Sejuani, the Ant, all amounts to nothing. The magic damage being done by Balmy Cinder, by Wit's End, by the Zeri autos as well. This man has itemized perfectly for the situation where he has emerged after 2 series of being beaten into his corner. Now going to come alive as the true
everyone looking for him
as he turns his attention towards this top side. Look at Central, so scared of what he can do, even with the wave towards him. Charms going wide. Cutie Shark having to turn this into a 2v1 just to try to take this turret down. 5v1, excuse me. as all of a sudden out of nowhere, they're going to try to grab this shutdown. Charm locked up, but you can't quite dive a Mordekaiser because he's going to be able to turn this into the 1v1. Objective bounty's been claimed. Vest still fighting it out of the Shadow Realm as Cutie Shark withstands the storm. He's there. Black Shields flash away. Rail right in from Fungal Pants. Takes himself to melee range. Although the damage isn't too great, the stuns are there, and they are able to find Vest on the back end of a shutdown. Goes the way of the Sejuani. No members of the University of Washington there to try to stop them as the charms not going to be blocked by the back shield. Damon's dancing, the only one on the top side. Everybody else getting their own advantages. Mid lane turrets being taken down. Vagar going against the Malphite in the bot side. Although the shutdown is taken away, there's a Rift Herald going in on the inhibitor turret at 19 minutes of this game. And Ame is winning big off the back of a 5v1 that Vest walked away from with only one death.
No, oh my gosh. For like half of that fight, Vest had lost virtually no health because of Jack's show. It took all of them about 20 seconds to even like put a dent into him, which just shows you how much ahead he is, and I mean how well Jack Show is like doing on a character like Mordekaiser. I think it's a really smart way to go because it doesn't give you more damage, but why do you need damage if you just can't die at that point? Really well played by UW, and it's really looking good for them so far, I'd say.
What are we seeing now? 5,000 gold advantage at 20 minutes. I don't even think the University of Utah was able to climb to these heights in both of the previous games that we characterize as complete destruction on their behalf. This time around, it's the University of Washington with all the toys in their chest, all the plays that they want to make. Now the mid-game items are starting to come online. Rabadon's Death Cap for Pasco. Monamune nearly completed. 2 items, like we said, on both the Mordekaiser and the Zed, and still scraping together whatever they can. On the side of the University of Utah, the second items are just not there yet, and as these objectives start to come online, it's going to be so difficult to contest. Look at University of Washington and how they're posturing forward in their opponent's own jungle. They're fishing for Fungal Pants, who makes his way back to his own team. Glacial Prison has been forced, but it's a teleport from the Mordekaiser. Engaged onto the Vagar. Take him out to start this fight. Shutdown goes the way of the Malphite. Immediately, Mord has to back off of this one. 5v4 situation now, and although there's no objective to be taken, it's a way to get back into this game.
Yeah, another thing I've noticed, which is kind of surprising coming from Utah, is they've given two, one Dragon and one Rift objectives just free at this point because they're playing smart now. They know that UW has this advantage, so they're not trying to push their luck anymore that they can get it, which I think, again, is really smart. And I think for the most part in the games 2 prior, UW has needed to take a note from that book, but they play so smart, so it really takes a lot out of UW to try and find anything that they can get to their advantage.
Although the gold lead still remains at 4,000. Lauded off the back of any kind of one fight could immediately swing that back if they could. Here's a play on a Centurial. Shuriken's gonna go wide.
Yep.
Prowler's Claw is there all the same. The Skyfall 3 drops the Mastery 7 and shows why. It's game 3 Zed time, baby. Now here's some priority in the top side. Now the Baron's opened up. Now the Dragon there as well to take them to Soul Point. Single player plays can do so much to change the character of these games, as now the red side eyes the Baron Nashor. And I don't think there's any way to try to stop them from doing it.
Yeah, Kestra, if I can be a little bit optimistic right now, my only thought is if UW wins this game, I wonder what Sky Falls to me I'll have to bring out because I don't think there's any way that Utah would let this Zed come through again. I'm trying to think of the future. I'm trying to be positive and just what might they do next game even if they can't have this Zed, because I think they'll really have to prioritize that if it's left up for the,
if you want to bring it outside this game, the question we got to ask is what took you so long? Between the causes, this is what we were waiting to see this entire time. Nashor not going to be the priority for the red side. Instead, it's a secret start. They've been tipped off, though. They already know. The blue orb is there. This could be really dicey for the University of Utah. Here's the poke starting to hail down. Really difficult to win out in this 5v5 with only these items so far. Look at the event! Oh, they engage onto the backside. Beautiful turn! Fucked up! Take it down 2 to start this fight off. Forrest being brought down by the Ahri, by the Malphite. Diamond's Dance is next. What an incredible engage! As the University of Utah turn an event horizon into a galaxy of a team fight. Wow! Baron Nashor's next. Objective bounties on the Dragon. Only the Mordecai's are there to try to stop them, and he doesn't have the realm to do it all by himself, although it's burning down slowly. There's nothing he can do but turn his attention towards the other objective. An incredible engage by the blue side.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to that's not something UW is looking for. They aren't ready for them to pull something, which I would think overall would be pretty standard coming from a team that has a Malphite, that they're going to be looking for that engage over the wall during a Baron Nashor fight. So, unfortunate, but not really surprising coming from the side of Utah. It's going to be what they're looking for because they know it's going to be contested, and they have two ults that have giant hit spaces between Sejuani and Malphite that they can use to just kill the squishy characters that are on UW's team.
It was so perfect for the University of Utah. They immediately turned their attention to the Baron. They clue the University of Washington in. Hey, you don't think we can do this Baron, can you? You don't think that we have enough items for it. You're going to bring all 5 members over and turn this into a wipe if we continue to do this. They thought they had them in the barrel with the event horizon around all 3 members, but the mobility that this composition has available, the pick potential that they could turn onto the Sky Falls for me, it was so well put together from the University of Utah. We're coming off the back of those item disadvantages, layering the CC. This is what their composition was built for, and the one advantage that they have over the individual power of the champions on the UW side, as here's the ultimate onto Central, immediately stopped by the Zed. He knows he can't venture far forward as the Baron buffs on all 5 members continue to push the lanes in. Look what's happening in the bot side. Pasco under siege by Setijay. Ultimate's going low, forced to flash away, gets the kill all the same. The Mastery 5 Malphite has emerged in Game 3 as well. A devastating swing off the back of that Baron team fight has now turned into 1 turret, into 2 turrets, into a dive onto the Mordekaiser where Fungal Pants is caught, ulted by Mordekaiser, goes under. You're going to have 2 members waiting for him on the other side. Dodges out on the claw. There's Sky Falls to be fighting the mid laners. The teleport finally goes through. Zeri got 1 on the support side. Slow's connected onto Zed. He's not stopping under the enemy base as the Mordekaiser goes low himself. Zed might be able to walk away from this one, but it's the base to fall next for the University of Washington. I smell 1 inhibitor. I smell a mid lane turret. I might be able to see the University of Utah go all the way off this push at just 25 minutes because of how well they've been playing these team fights.
Yeah, and this game, most unexpected of all, they're just able to capitalize even when UW seems ahead. It's crazy. They know what they're doing. And even with UW putting everything they have towards this game, they can't really get too much more than a pick or 2 per fight. Like, Utah's just able to group so well and get those important picks, whereas UW's just kind of having to follow behind and get what they can, get the scraps off the table, really.
My brain just can't stop thinking about that Baron ace. The way that the University of Washington right into the hands of Utah, right? Look at the way that their composition is drawn up. They've got the Vars poke. They've got Dark Matter dropping down from Pasco. They've got the bindings that they can throw out if they so need. They've got all 5 members of Utah waiting in the pit, merciless before the skill shots that they can out right into the one opportunity for Utah to get all that CC onto all those members. Oh, and that was all they needed. It was such a knife's edge moment where the University of Washington really overestimating how ahead they were, and now it's all looking back as it did in the previous 2 games. It's looking like the University once again backed in by the Utes. The items are there. The disparity has all but diminished. 4,000 gold is the advantage for the University of Utah, and one that's only going to get worse come this next dragon.
Yeah, and it feels like it comes out of nowhere because Vess was just so obviously ahead, and then somehow now Setijay, who we haven't really talked much about, is 2 levels ahead. He has 50 CS up, and kills are about the same, and he has more assists, so overall he's higher up in gold, but it just feels like Vess is just so much more obviously ahead, but Setijay is able to play that quiet long con where he just kind of comes up from behind and spooks you, really. And it's really beautifully done because you don't expect it, and I think that's why UW was given somewhat of a false hope that they were ahead for a while, and they were, but it's something that they weren't expecting that you really always have to be. You can't get comfortable with a team like Utah. So at this point, Kestra, I have a question. who do you think is the most important for UW to pick off in order to have a chance on Utah's team?
If there was any opportunity for them to do so, they need to take Fungal Pants out of the fight before it's. They tried their best before. They got the realm on him. He kited out simply too well. Went toe-to-toe with the bot lane all by himself and completely floored them, nearly took the Mord out next. If you can somehow get him in a situation where without this flash, only the cleanse, if you can find him some way before he can get the rail ride down, maybe you've got him on the event horizon, maybe a miracle binding, corrupting chain, get their way onto this player, then that opens up so many more opportunities for you to play, because really only the Malphite as the damage threat. The Ahri is there, but with the Cosmic Drive and the Leon Anguish really providing more utility than anything else. So that big damage threat from the University of Washington, the University of Utah, is now rail riding her way in on top of a Zed. Ultimates drops. Flash is already gone, and even though the Glacial Prison doesn't connect, the stun is there, cleansed away, taking down. Fungal Pants has gone, but not before taking down the Zed. And he's found the return kill. Charmed up, taken away. Amei's next. 3 members, not even needed. Malphite in the 1v1 in the prison realm, flashes away just for style points as the rest turn their attention
Look at that lethal tempo!
5. As I think what we see here is 5 players with mastery over the game of League of Legends. 20-12, a 4-kill team fight. Dragons next. No way for the soul now for the University of Washington. And even if they don't turn in any more turrets, the assist ping goes exactly where it should be. And that's at the top river.
Malphite just looks absolutely insane at full lethal tempo stacks, just beating on Mordekaiser. I mean, it's not something you expect to work, but seeing it in action is just absolutely crazy. And it's really well done on Setajay's part. I mean, out of everyone on Utah's team, he has to be the strongest because he knows his job and he knows how to do it so perfectly that it's, I mean, even with the cracks that were found at the start of this game, he just shrugged it off and said, okay, whatever, I still win, and just keeps just marching forward. It's amazing, really.
We have to remember, Ava, because it's so easy to get lost in how much praise we have doled out to Setajay. His opponent started this game off with a triple kill, 5 turret plates being taken, and a second-tier turret being taken. All of that could not stop Setajay from making it to 2 levels over his opponent in what should have been a counter matchup, in what should have been him losing the priority. The University of Washington finally making the adjustment, but now here goes over the Zed, right back out. No way to do anything about 4 members there as the Malphite roars back into action from base. The Baron is available, and the University of Washington, I can imagine, are getting nightmares about how they played this one previously, as they're going to look for this play. There's the charm. There's the stun. No way now for the Zed to get out of this one. Even Mezzi's on a rampage. As with the jungler going, the Baron's next. The base to follow. University of Washington. It's all but lights out, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, not much more they can do at this point, and it's so sad because even just 10-15 minutes ago, we had so much hope for this game going in their favor, but Utah is just playing so wonderfully, and I think that has to even be shown by something we didn't talk about from the last team fight, where Zed fully comboed the Zeri and barely did a fourth of her health after being so able to just do whatever he wanted at the start of this game, and us saying he looks like he's unstoppable. He can't even put really a dent into Zeri, and that says a lot because she's going to be the squishiest member on their team.
If you can't kill this area, I mean, what the heck else are you going to do in a game like this?
And as a character like Zed, like, if you can't kill Zeri...
He's got nearly 150 CS over his opponent that said you want me, right? But none of it going to amount to now that that's kill lead has ballooned to 21-12. We're already seeing flashbacks, or we're already seeing flash forwards into what this game could look like, but I think it's already spelled to the rest of us. As the mid lane to start, the top lane inhibitors going, Cutie Shark simply walking up with impunity as Fungal Pants. Even the last fight, when he got binded up under all 4 members, still emerged with that kill. This time has all his summoners available. Oh, the shutdown somehow going over to the to the Mordekaiser. They were able to create the kill in the 4v1 situation in the top side when he gone deep, but now that's still the green light though for Fungal Pants to find something. Flashes away from the Zed now. There's something. 2 carries being taken away. Centrio's the only one still here to try to take this damage. But it's going to be a lot more than that. All it is going to delay that push for a little bit longer. University of Washington still corralled into their base, but 2 key shutdowns onto 2 key carries is some way back in.
Yeah, and I mean, it really is just crazy how much Utah was able to pull back from being just a little bit behind. Because, like we've talked about that UW needed, Utah is so patient with how they play that they don't really need to go for anything flashy until it's time. They were giving up objectives because they knew that it wasn't worth it to fight over it, even if they were able to get something out of it. They're really smart about how they play, and it works so well in their favor that they're just able to kind of bring back any game because they don't feel the need to push for anything other than what they can get. They don't have to overextend themselves or make themselves available when they shouldn't be.
Maybe a here, it's at least a lot of damage being done. The Banshee's Bale still available, but not for much longer. The bomb plant trying to be dodged away from right into the arm. Easy money for Centrial. Starts the fight off by taking down the jungler. And with a dragon on the way, that's not what you want to be seeing as a UW fan flash forward to try to find the support. But this is a lot scarier than most you might expect. Gets the isolation damage Q. Staying alive a little bit longer, but not even able to create that kill. Is in the backline. Malphite finds the double. Off the back of a fight where he went 1v4 and paid for it with a little bit of a delay, but now with waves being poured in at all angles, University of Utah run the victory lap. They take this Veigar down under his own base. Nowhere to go for Pascal. Flash forward, seismic shard, beaten down by the lethal tempo. Essential sends one final charm to let him know who's boss. The University of Utah have just completed the clean sweep of the University of Washington to advance in these CLoL playoffs.
I mean, nothing more you can say to that than fully good game, because played absolutely so wonderfully by Utah. Even there at the end, it looked like Mordekaiser was gonna get that kill on the Annie, and she missed her flash, and he still couldn't secure it. Like, there wasn't much more that could be done, even though towards the start, it seemed like the world was in their hands, and they could really do anything with that. And it's so sad because you want them to, but Utah just plays so well that you can't ask for much more.
And it's something that bears repeating every time we get into this scenario, every time. Always in the Collegiate League of Legends scene, that there are levels to this, right? There are teams out there that even a team like the University of Washington held that undefeated streak for so long, who is amassing 20,000 goal leads, sub 20-minute victories. There are teams who will not budge or move and show you what you've done to these other teams tenfold passion, right? The University of Utah, such a great all-around, able to win from ahead, able to win playing through one player, able to win slow, burned out game plan, able to win from behind, spotting their win condition, playing towards the strengths of their team composition, spotting out the right moment in order to come out on top. It was sheer all-around greatness from the Utes, and that's why they're going to emerge from this series with the clean sweep over the Washington. Like you said, stings a little bit as a University of Washington fan myself to see them go out so soon, but really excited, I'd say, for the members of this. You know, it wasn't the best that they brought out for themselves today, and I know that they can do so much more. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I have to look forward, because unfortunately there's ups and downs when playing in esports, and this is one of the downs, but I mean, it motivates you to really do better and to really learn how to counteract something like the University of Utah. I think it's, even with how much it might suck to lose, it's a really great learning lesson, because now you're able to watch back and figure out what went wrong and how you can better counteract that, which means a lot more than like a single win or two in a series.
Always about improvement. The University of Washington only have up to go from here, I would say, but congratulations to the University of Utah on their victory. We wish them the best of luck in their next best of 5 series. proud to have played this series. Thank you so much to all of you watching, joining us at the University of Washington Twitch, spending production crew with our players, our talent. It's an absolute blast, if I can say so myself, to have been able to cast these series for our. I know you can say the same, Ava.
Oh, definitely.
And remember to check us out at UW Esports on most platforms, Twitter, YouTube, UW Esports, and make sure to join the Discord if you are interested in volunteering behind being a part of the excitement that we see here in this ball. Have a great night, everybody.
Have a good night.